Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Thursday midday edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hello.
Hello.
I've really got to glue this to like a base.
You know, it's funny that you started out on that note, because I was just going to start out on that note, but from a similar perspective, from a different point of view. I'm feeling very good about the show today because I feel very good about this mic placement. I feel like I nailed it. I'm very comfortable. Very comfortable. I'm not too reclined, but not too upright where I'm hunched and slouched. I feel like I have good diaphragm to airwave projection. I feel like there's a nice open corridor of sounds. I feel very comfortable, which is very rare, because the thing about these microphone arms is, for a guy like me with ADHD, they are a double-edged sword. Because yes, it's more comfortable than a stand where you're slouched over to stand, but at the same time, it's like I got to get the positioning perfect. But I feel like I've nailed it.
Yeah, your feng shui is like, radiating, emanating, from that little crappy room you do the show from.
Yes. Well, hey, it's a new era. Maybe that's what it is. It's a new era.
New era.
We have crossed 100,000 subscribers. Thank you, everybody in the audience, for making this happen.
To the top if you want to rock and roll.
That's right. Thank you very, very much, everybody, for helping us get here. Everybody in the audience is the YouTubers, the Rumblers, the patrons. Obviously, you guys are the backbone of the show. We could not have gotten anywhere without you, and to all of our peers in the space who helped us along the way. Obviously, Jimmy Dore and the whole team at the Jimmy Dore Show, our post-duopoly brothers there, Heartlands Media, RBN.
RBN really put us on when we had very small audience.
Yep.
They really did a lot to boost our signal. So yes, much love to them. And I've told this story before, man. During the dark days of the pandemic, a friend of mine said to me, because we had already started doing the podcast, but it was a little thing. They said, well, what do you want to do? I said, man, there's these guys, the Fred Hampton leftists. I would love to do stuff with them. That was before they even changed their name. So,
right.
Man, living the dream.
Living the dream. Absolutely. And, now we get into dangerous territory where I'm liable to forget people. But obviously Pasta was a huge help early on. Misty Winston, obviously, who's now part of the network Generational Change, picked us out of a crowd and started putting us on. So, now, like I said, now it gets really dangerous because you don't want to forget somebody. I
also want to thank Matt Taibbi. He came on when we had like 10,000 subscribers.
Yeah, Aaron Mate.
Aaron Mate came on when we were really small.
Yeah.
Matt shared out one of our articles. Like, he's been really, really great to us. Yeah. Aaron came on very early. I think it would be really shitty of us not to thank the Vanguard, because this is our origin story in terms of this incarnation. Because we started doing the blog and the show. I just saw it as an extension of the activism I was already doing. I didn't really think of it as something we were going to do full time. And Keaton calls me up one day. He says, hey, there's these guys, the Vanguard. They did this terrible interview with Aaron Mate. We should do it. And so I had never it pays more attention to the space than I do.
I was a
So
huge fan at the time.
He was a huge fan. I had never said well because you were really into the McKenzie brothers. So
Yeah,
it was
right. Yeah,
kind of like
exactly.
a natural carryover from that.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of him, man. And so I watched the video and I called Keaton back. I said, these guys have an audience? He said, yeah. I said, we're going about this all wrong, man. Fuck Facebook. We got to go on YouTube. We got to have a YouTube show. And the rest is history. So, that happened to me once with, that's how I ended up owning theaters, man. I rented a theater from a guy who was completely incompetent, but very successful. And I said, well, shit, why am I renting theaters? This guy can run a fucking theater. A monkey could run a theater at that point. So I said, we're definitely awful enough to get ahead in this space if those guys are. And we proved it.
Yes. So thank you all for all of your support along the way. It's been a real ride. And ironically, the Vanguard guys are at 100K now too. They actually beat us there. They
beat us there.
Yeah,
they
were able to.
It's been like
Well, they were able to really capitalize on the collapse of of the Young Turks. So hey, good for them. Everybody's got to eat.
the
Right,
Young
whatever.
Turks loss was their game. Yeah, we want everyone to be happy. We want everyone to do well. Like that, like we don't.
We want everyone to do very well.
We want everyone to do very well. In the end, we're all friends here.
Yeah, we think of the Vanguard the way Trump thinks of Iran. We want them to do very well. We want
them to do well. We want them to do well. Maybe we could collaborate.
Yeah, they're the Ayatollahs of the space.
We'll have like a left mafia spin-off show.
But yeah.
So yeah, are we forgetting about it? I'm like, Shama.
Obviously, yeah. Worker Strike
Shama.
Back. Yeah.
And you know who I actually want to thank? That'll be a little controversial. Rage Against the War Machine.
Oh yeah, that's controversial. That's going to be the talk of Twitter today.
Yeah,
Russell Dobular thanks Angela McCardle.
No, and Nick, it was Nick who really put us in.
Nick Brana too. Yeah.
Yeah, Nick Brana. I forgot his last name. Yeah, Brana actually gave us the slot. So
Brana, I interviewed Brana back when we had just an audio show. I don't even know where the hell that is. But from MPP, that was like the first guest who I had like known who they were, in advance of the interview. When me and Richie started the show, we were just interviewing like local Hudson Valley activists. Like I said, the project just kind of started as an extension of what we were already doing, which is talking shit, talking politics, doing a little activism here and there. So we just kind of created the podcast as an extension of that on my friend's advice. My friend at the time told me, you talk about politics on the phone a lot. Why don't you just record yourself talking about it and put it out as a podcast? What's the worst that can happen? I said, the worst that can happen is no one listens. In fact, no one listening is probably the best that can happen in the long run. But we were not so lucky. We were not so lucky. And people started listening.
And on a personal note, I want to thank James. He used to come on a little bit. My friend. Oh
yeah,
James.
Nagy.
Yeah. He was the first person who said to me the show's good. Like it never occurred to me it was good. I just thought, we're having fun and whatever. And yeah, like you said, like talking shit. And I would be remiss if I did not thank my friend Tiffany, who in the darkest times of COVID took me into her house for like 3 months, literally 3 months. And she was the one who asked me that question, what I wanted to do. I said, work with the Fred Hampton leftists. So she definitely, she patched me up like a wounded bird, sent me back on my way. What's funny, we kind of have different politics. So I always kid around with her, you probably regret now.
Right.
Helping me.
Yeah, exactly.
But
careful what you wish
man.
for. She was like Bill Clinton encouraging Donald Trump to run for president,
Exactly.
Kind of blew up in her face.
You took the snake across the river.
Yes. And I also have to thank my wonderful family for being very patient with me, for letting me spend hours and hours and hours and hours on this when it paid nothing. And, trusting that it would eventually work out. And so I'm glad that it did for the time being. Knock on wood. Take nothing for granted in this world. So thank you all very much.
Yeah, one last, my man Vinny, sadly, I think he's the only friend of mine who's a patron. What does that say?
Right. Oh boy.
When I put up on my Facebook, which I basically limit to social connections for the most part, when I put up the 100,000,
right,
it's like almost everyone who gave it a thumbs up are like people who are on my page from the show, and
right,
people I've known forever. I could almost feel them seething.
Right.
Because that page is mostly made up of people I know from theater who are very MSNBC libs who are much discomfited that I'm putting out this kind of message.
There you go. There you go. We got some great super chats in here. I got one from Rumble that came in before the show. Oh, there it is. Yes. Because we do want to keep things in perspective here. So Nocturnal Human says 26.8K on Rumble. You YouTubers get over here and follow too, even if you don't watch here. Yes, that's very important. That's very important.
Yep.
One of the things that makes it a little bittersweet is that this is still a censorious platform. So, we're very grateful for YouTube for giving us the platform, but at the same time, it's a double-edged sword because this is still a censorious platform. And so we want to also, ironically, thank Rumble for helping us grow this platform. It's kind of weird to thank Rumble for hitting a milestone on YouTube, but I wouldn't consider the show worth doing if we didn't have a free speech place to stream, not just as a failsafe, but as a location for us to do content that we can't do here. That helped us grow tremendously and helped us feel secure in building the project out. Because if we didn't have Rumble, I would feel much more comfortable just continuing to write articles on Substack. Like the whole streaming and clipping thing only makes sense if you have a home base that's not going to turn you off for arbitrary reasons. So yes, please do go follow us on Rumble. That's hugely important. Thank you, Nocturnal Human.
And I guess I can reveal this now.
Yeah.
We were just awarded a Theo Bucks grant. So
exactly. Yeah.
So we are in like Flynn at Rumble.
In like Flynn. That's right. All right. Sailor Jerry Swallow says, congrats. Thank you, Sailor Jerry. Mark Pugliese, 100K. Holy shit, fellas. Thank you, Mark Pugliese. Jay Tolbert, congrats on 100,000 subs, fellas. Thank you, Jay. Peter Monahan, Gator Pete, hope you're well, man. Great to see you getting back on the road, getting back to work. That's amazing, man. Congratulations on 100,000. Thank you, Peter. Appreciate that. Mr. Fancy Pants, thanks for the $9.99. Says I came over as a refugee from the Vanguard. Thank you, Mr. Fancy Pants. Cyrus, thanks for the $50. Cyrus, thank you. Good to see you again, Cyrus. Appreciate that.
Oh, and you got a sound drop.
He's got a sound drop.
We haven't even used that in a while.
Yeah, we haven't been around in a while, Cyrus. Thank you for that. Appreciate that.
Gotta find that one.
There we go. Yes, Russ has to find that one indeed. Okay. While you're looking for that, we'll get this stuff set up and we will get on with the show today. Thanks all for being here. Got 1,000 strong in the YouTube chat. Start things off today. 411 filing in over on Rumble. Do you have Cyrus's drop? I know you just rearranged the thing, so it's a little hard. But isn't that Warriors?
Yeah, you know what, man? Cyrus has not been around in so long because we have a limited number of sound drops we can put in. I took it out.
All right, we got to put it back in for you, Cyrus.
I'll put it back in if you're coming back,
If you're coming around again, then we will do that for you. All right.
I was like, we said something to piss that guy off, I guess. That happens a lot, so it's a reason.
Yes, exactly. All right. We will get started right about now, folks. Okay. So this broke last night, so we thought we should do this. This is news. President Trump releases video statement following his decision to ban entry into the United States from 12 countries. 7 other countries have partial restrictions. The 12 with full travel restrictions are Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, the Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. The 7 countries with partial restrictions: Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela. Kind of a common characteristic among most of those countries, don't you think? Let's take a look at his statement.
Attack in Boulder, Colorado.
The recent terror attack in Boulder, Colorado, has underscored the extreme dangers posed to our country by the entry of foreign nationals who are not properly vetted, as well as those who come here as temporary visitors and overstay their visas. We don't want them.
What's interesting about that is that the guy was from Egypt, and Egypt is not on the list of banned countries, which is interesting, since he cites that as the reason for this travel ban.
In the 21st century, we've seen one terror attack after another carried out by foreign visa overstayers from dangerous places all over the world. And thanks to Biden's open door policies, today there are millions and millions of these illegals who should not be in our country. In my first term, my powerful travel restrictions were one of our most successful policies, and they were a key part of preventing major foreign terror attacks on American soil. We will not let what happened in Europe happen to America. That's why on my first day back in office,
Meaning we won't let America be overrun with Muslims. That's what he's saying.
Directed the Secretary of State to perform
and Africans and South Americans.
We only like the white Africans.
The white ones, yes.
The white ones.
Yes.
The white ones. They're most people don't realize that. They think Africa's all black. It's many people, including white people.
Yes,
are
there's
Africans.
There's just the genocide of white people, so that's why you don't hear about them very often.
security review of high-risk regions and make recommendations for where restrictions should be imposed. Among the national security threats their analysis considered are the large-scale presence of terrorists, failure to cooperate on visa security, inability to verify travelers' identities, inadequate record-keeping of criminal histories, and persistently high rates of illegal visa overstays, and other things. Very simply, we cannot have open migration from any country where we cannot safely and reliably vet and screen those who seek to enter the United States. That is why today I am signing a new executive order placing travel restrictions on countries including Yemen, Somalia, Haiti, Libya, and numerous others. The strength of the restrictions we're applying depends on the severity of the threat posed. The list is subject to revision based on whether material improvements are made, and likewise new countries can be added as threats emerge around the world. But we will not allow people to enter our country who wish to do us harm, and nothing will stop us from keeping America safe. Thank you very much.
All right, that is his statement.
For what? Arresting me for what? I'm not allowed to stand up for myself? I thought this was America. Huh? Isn't this America? I'm sorry. I thought this was America.
I thought this was America. Africa Research Desk says there is a war in Sudan. In fact, there is a genocide in Sudan, the second in 22 years. The USA said there is a genocide in Sudan. It is one of the worst conflicts on the planet, and Trump just banned travel from Sudan, along with the ban on asylum seekers and refugees. Zaina Day says...
I bet those people would appreciate a jet.
Yes, they might appreciate a jet.
I bet if you sent a jet there, you get more than 59 people would want to get on it.
Yes, I would set the over-under at well above 59 for the Sudan, 100%. Zainab Day says Trump administration's new travel ban listed a litany of countries that U.S. weapons were used to bomb and destabilize, wreck their countries so the war barons get fat off the spoils, then ban their citizens from coming here. Imperialism is evil. Yeah. Look at those. Look at those countries. Afghanistan, 20-year occupation. Haiti, Libya, Somalia, Yemen. Yes. Fred Wellman says Trump launched his travel ban allegedly because of the Boulder attack. He was from Egypt, which isn't on Trump's list. If he had been around on 9/11, he would have banned people from Honduras instead of Saudi Arabia. What a jackwad. Well, you're probably right, but that's not unique to Donald Trump. Of course, we did not invade Saudi Arabia. We invaded Afghanistan and then Iraq, even though the hijackers were all Saudi. So why did he do this? This is, of course, why he did this, to get a rise out of the chuds, to throw some red meat to the base. Not coincidentally, in my opinion, right as Elon Musk turned on him and started publicly bashing his one big beautiful bill, which we're going to get into next. When a rift like that happens in your coalition, you have to throw red meat to the base. And of course, what is the most reliable form of red meat to the MAGA base? I'm sorry, you guys earned this. Okay, I didn't do it. You did. Racism. That is the unifying thing of the MAGA base at this point. That upsets you. Sorry, you had plenty of chance to disprove that, and you did exactly the opposite. Nick Sorter says President Trump just signed a full travel ban for multiple Middle Eastern and African countries, including Somalia, Afghanistan, and others. Ilhan Omar is going to be big mad tonight as she'll no longer be able to import Somalis. Ha, 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 ha. Now, speaking of Somalis, it is interesting. This video kind of went viral right before he announced this as well. So Wall Street Apes posts American Records, pardon me, a college graduation in Minnesota. It seriously looks like over 90% of the entire school is from Somalia. There's so many Somalians in this bitch. Any place you walk, you will see everywhere. What the hell? This does not look like America. Yes, so this went viral a couple of days ago.
Any Somalians in this bitch. Oh, God. Any place you walk, you see all of that. Everywhere. What the hell?
Yeah. Well, Shiloh Hendricks does not have a junior professorship there, I can assure you. And that is Minnesota.
Yeah, you notice how quick that bitch disappeared, man? Maybe she was an op.
Well, she took the money, and now she's,
She took the money.
She took the money and went to Norway.
I moved to Somalia.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Alex Jones just in. President Trump releases video statement following his decision to ban entry into the United States from 12 countries. I say deport them all.
I say whatever they pay me to say.
Right.
Because I've been sued to within an inch of my life.
Exactly. Yeah. Look at this charmer here, Jamie Mitchell. Trump just issued a travel ban from the shithole Islam-infested countries. This is exactly what I voted for. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Yes, that is, of course, red meat to the base, which explains why he did it. But we want to get the reaction here from Venezuela. The Venezuelan Interior Minister, Diosdado Cabello, responded to this in predictably based fashion. Honestly, being in the U.S. is a big risk for anyone, not just Venezuelans. If you're really that foolish, then go to the United States. And he got a big laugh out of that. Let's take a look.
Para Estados Unidos. En verdad,
honestly, being in the U.S. is a big risk for anyone, not just Venezuelans. If you're really that foolish, then go to the United States. The people who govern the United States are bad people. It's fascism. They are supremacists who think they own the world and persecute our people for no reason. Yes.
Lies detected.
Predictably based response from Venezuela, who are, of course, on the list. Now, of course, this takes place just after Trump opened the door for white South African refugees who were owed not just asylum status, but an expedited pathway to citizenship here in the U.S. because of the persecution that they faced in South Africa, which by extension you must conclude that Donald Trump feels South Africa is a very violent and unstable country with an out-of-control authoritarian government that is persecuting people on the basis of race. So could you not say the same for people who are trapped in war-torn countries and destabilized countries like Sudan, like Yemen, which we facilitated a genocide of before the Gaza genocide, Somalia,
like Congo,
Libya, a country we destroyed, Congo, Venezuela. These people all get the door. Afghanistan. A lot of the people we're turning down from Afghanistan are people who assisted in the American occupation of that country for 20 years and now have to live under the Taliban after having assisted the U.S. So talk about people who have legitimate fear of persecution, right? But they're not allowed in. The white South Africans are allowed in. And that's, of course, what this is about. This is a political ploy to the base at a time when there is significant risk of division, because as we're going to get to in our next segment, Elon Musk is not holding back any longer about this big, beautiful bill. And a lot, especially online, a lot of the diehard MAGA stands are diehard Elon stands. And so what do you have to do at a moment when your coalition is potentially going to split? You have to give them something that they can all unite around, which in this case, yes, is anti-Arab, Muslim, Hispanic, African racism. And that is, of course, what motivates this decision. Egypt is the country of origin of the Boulder attacker. That's not on the list. That's not on the list. So how do you explain this any other way?
Yeah, well, it's the oldest trick in the book. You know, people are economically disempowered. They're politically disempowered. You got to give them someone to kick. And the oldest trick with white people in this country is, well, at least you're not them.
Right.
Right. So this is not in any way going to put $1 in anyone's pocket. I know they think it is. This is coinciding with the AI apocalypse, which is pretty much upon us now. They want as little use for labor as possible. This is all a show to keep you distracted until they get rid of you too. Those of you who are not already gotten rid of, who are sitting there thinking, oh yeah, nah, they stopped these Somalis from coming into the country. My wages are going to go through the roof. We're going to be back to 1950s economic conditions. Yeah, you're not going to see that, man. That was a moment in time that was very unique, where most of our competitors had been bombed back to the Stone Age. It wasn't simply a triumph of capitalism. It was largely a very unique set of circumstances that led to that kind of prosperity. And you also had enormous taxes on the wealthy. You had a 90% tax on the wealthy. You don't see Elon talking about that, do you? You don't see any of these people advocating for a return to that. They're trying to tell you, if you get rid of the immigrants, those conditions will come back. And it's absolutely absurd if you understand what the conditions were that created that kind of an economy that worked for so many people. And not all people, to be clear, but it worked for more people than this economy works for. This is what's so empty about so much of the identitarian rhetoric. Yes, are white people angry that they have lost their economic status? Yes, but that does not mean that non-white people have been raised up. It's just that white people have been dragged down to the level that everyone else was living in already. If you look at the numbers, the economic conditions of blacks in America have barely budged since the civil rights era. They didn't get risen up. They got dragged down. And that same game is played on them, right? Oh, look at these white people so angry. Yeah. Don't look at how you're doing. Look at the fact that they've been pulled down off of that pedestal yet. Don't you feel good? It's all a big game that's played on all of us, and it's not going to change until we break out of that paradigm and come together as working people. And that's what all this is designed to avoid.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to the point, and it's an important one, that non-white people have not been raised up. It's that white people have been pushed down closer to the level of non-white people, economically speaking. And I have to say, on a different level, it crossed my mind because, you know, we had Max Blumenthal on the Jimmy Dore show the other day. One full clip of that was, you know, is it time to leave the United States? As you see people like Hassan Piker getting shaken down at the airport. Max Blumenthal, of course, got shaken down at the airport. This administration's crackdown on free speech in 4 months has already been worse than even Biden's record on free speech, which was also terrible. So, yeah, I mean, for the first time ever, I feel really at odds with the government in a major way. I feel like the government really doesn't respect my right to do what I do for a living. Like they don't like I'm not wanted here. Like they wish I were either not here or would just quit and do something else, right? I am a constant burden to them in their eyes. And you know what I did think when I thought about that is, look, I grew up in a majority minority city, a third black, a third brown, a third white. And coming out of that, you understand for your whole life, you'll never know as a white person what it is like to be a black person in this country. But now this feeling of being constantly at odds with the government, constantly at odds with an entity that has so much power over you and has such disdain for you and who you are and what you do. I feel like this is closer to feeling black in America than I'll ever become. I'm not saying that I understand what that's like, but this is what it must be. That must be what it's like to be black in this country, to constantly feel like a government that is hostile to you and has so much power over you has its boot right here, and can just crush you at any moment. And that's what they and that. Sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
That is what this political faction reverts to when they are in trouble, because they know that feeling of power over a group that's even lower on whatever hierarchy than you are, be it social, economic, political, they know that if they feed that sensibility in their base, that is a unifying factor.
Yeah, that relationship to the government is also a class thing, because I grew up with everyone in my environment saw the government that way.
Oh, sure.
We saw the cops that way. Like, we never saw the cops as there to protect us.
Sure.
We saw the cops as an enemy. That's why whenever, it would always cause a lot of cognitive dissonance, because I would be getting arrested in the middle of, directing a show. And I would always relate to the people I'd be in jail with much better than I related to the people I was doing the show with. Because people who have been to college or doing art, which usually is one and the same, they don't have that relationship to government. I remember I was dating a girl and I said, I saw, what was the movie with Johnny Depp? True Story. Is that called Blow?
Yeah, about the drug dealer, yeah.
About the drug dealer. And so I saw the movie, and afterwards I said to her, thinking nothing of it, I said, man, he should have stuck with the weed. That was really where he went wrong, man. He had a great life dealing the weed. Nobody was really paying attention to that. He shouldn't have gotten into the blow. And she said to me, that's the message you took away from that movie? That's a criminal mind. Like, you just assume that if you could get away with it, you should do it. Right? like the idea of coming from a place where you would think what's illegal is wrong. Like right. Yeah, exactly. If you're poor, you just don't think like that.
Absolutely. I would never discount that. I obviously fully agree with that. I would just say, in addition to that, there is a racial component.
Oh, of course,
obviously.
Of course.
I grew up in a middle
the fact
class.
that every time I went to jail, I was the only white person there.
Well, yeah, of course.
It's a statement in and of itself.
And also, look, I grew up in a middle class household. We were like middle class. And when my parents bought their house, there was an empty lot behind our house, almost like in our backyard, that my parents didn't have enough money to buy, so they didn't buy it. And a black couple bought that land and built a house. So they lived in our backyard, basically, in land that was like right behind our house. Same size house. I'm assuming same income area, same class background. He would get pulled over from time to time just driving home from work through a mostly white neighborhood. The cop would ask, where are you going? You say, I'm going home. He'd show the driver's license. The address would check out. The cop would say, okay, be on your way. No taillight out, no speeding, no roll through a stop sign, nothing. Cop will pull him over. Where are you going? Because you're in a white neighborhood. So that's what I mean by, even if you share identical class background, if you're black, you can still feel that boot of the government.
There's an extra element.
It's still there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Let's see here. Hillary Hinton. Romero knew the score. Wake up, suckers. We're thieves and we're bad guys. That's exactly what we are. Peter, Dawn of the Dead. Thank you, Hillary Hinton. Appreciate that. Yikes. Does this mean we're going to have to suffer through a leaked sex tape of Piers Morgan by Israel now? Thank you, Eric Huso. Appreciate that.
Let's get
Yeah. Let's get a cowbell out for Vito for $50. It's Vito P. Special day, 100,000. Wow, congrats. Cancer sucks. You guys rock. You rock, Vito. Thank you for that. Appreciate that very much. Okay, what do we got here? 265005 says, for those who correctly saw through all the BS with Mr. Biden and his administration, how many terms would it take to finally point responsibility to this crew now? Or is the excuses on purpose? How many terms would it take to finally point? Oh, you mean to stop this crew from blaming Biden for everything? Yeah, I mean, that's a trick that pretty much everybody pulls.
I was just going to say, man,
like during the first 2 years of Biden's administration, they would say, well, it's Trump's inflation because of COVID and stuff like that. Yeah, so
they all play that game.
That's pretty commonplace. How many subs did you have when Russell fixed his shells? That's a good question. When did you switch sets? It was like, what? It was about a year ago, probably, right?
Probably a little more.
Little more. Because when I went to your apartment, which was, I think our live show, or our Jose fundraiser was a year ago tomorrow. So that's when I was there.
Yeah, the shells were definitely fixed by then.
The shells are fixed by then. So it was a little over a year ago. Yep. Okay. Let's see what we got over here on YouTube. Baby Ethernet says, discovered Vanguard first, instantly unsubscribed. Thank you, Baby Ethernet. What else we got over here? Joseph Hamad, thanks for becoming a member over on YouTube. Appreciate that. We also had Adam Wright become a member earlier in the stream. Thank you for that very much. Michael Castillo says, good afternoon, gentlemen. I wanted to tell Keaton that him and Kurt have excellent chemistry on Jimmy's show. Thank you. You two were amazing and funny AF. Yes, thank you. Thank you. That was those were really fun shows with Kurt. Yes, and he's a great on screen partner, I guess you would say. China Shell, thanks for the $5. Congratulations on 100K, guys. Thank you, China Shell. May the heavens bless you with mountains of gold and silver. Wealth flows to you from all 8 directions. Thank you, China Shell. Appreciate it.
You really are a China Shell.
He is a China Shell. Lyndon McLeod, thanks for the 100 Canadian dollars. That's very kind of you. Let's have a cowbell for Lyndon. Appreciate that. Says, congratulations, there is hope. Thank you very much, Lyndon. Kuznetsky Bassane, thanks for the 1999 super sticker. Matrix says, Sphincter Knucklebuster, thanks for the 199. Manzur Shahab, thanks for the 49.99. Let's have a cowbell for Manzur Shahab. Thank you guys for your generosity today.
We should break balls about the penny.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We would, but
you guys are crushing it, says Monzer. Thank you, Monzer. Appreciate that. Thank you very much for that generous contribution. All right, let's move on to Elon.
All right. So Elon, after his drug-fueled offboarding episode, decided in a methamphetamine rage to attack the big, beautiful bill. Now, for anybody who missed it, this was Elon's big send-off in the Oval Office.
It's a very sad case. It's a case we win. We can't lose that case because we have the right.
Somebody's got to put
as the sun beats down upon my face.
I got to put the Curb Your Enthusiasm music under that, and the like slow zoom in that they do.
In his mind,
at the end of the episode. Yeah.
I wonder what band is playing in his head during that. Yeah, no, he's not on drugs. He's not on drugs. No, it's the times. They're lying. So he started going off. This started on June 3rd. And this was after he had started. He gave CBS an interview where he's a bill could be big or it could be beautiful. I don't think it could be both. I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it! So Thomas Massey weighing in. He's been really acting as a tag team with Elon's tweets. Now the third was
Massey's like, God damn it, I need some of that 100 million for 2026 so they don't primary me.
So they don't primary him, exactly. So Cernovich here, and this is to what we were talking about in the previous segment. There's a real rift here in MAGA over this. Republicans always lie about spending cuts. Paul Ryan gave Obama everything he wanted. It's jarring to realize what a scam it is. Republicans know they can get away with it, as the alternative is what we lived under, and it would be even worse. How to reform it all? Big challenge. You could start with taxing the rich. Well, I don't want to upset anybody.
Yeah.
Richard Hanania. Do you think you might have contributed to this problem by spreading the idea that you could significantly cut spending by focusing on waste, fraud, and abuse? That's simply not true. Trump says you can balance the budget without touching entitlements. Do you agree with that? And there was actually an article last week, and I believe it was Fast Company. One of the Doge engineers, who's pretty big person in Silicon Valley, he got fired after 55 days for giving an interview. He said, yeah, honestly, when we went into the VA, it's really not run that badly. Like, it's run like any other big organization. I expected to find a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse. It's really not there. Certainly not on the scale they would need. Where they would have to go would be the Defense Department, which they're not going to do. So now Elon went on a real tweet storm. On the 4th, he dropped 3 within an hour. So the first was this one. A new spending bill should be drafted that doesn't massively grow the deficit and increase the debt ceiling by $5 trillion. Lucas Sanders here responded, I totally agree with you on this. They need to raise taxes on ultra-rich people, cut military and defense spending, tax corporations at a higher rate, end fossil fuel subsidies, fund the IRS so they can collect $600 billion in tax revenues, tax financial transactions at 0.1% per trade. I am betting that's not what Elon is going to advocate for. And here he follows up. Call your senator. Call your congressman. Bankrupting America is not okay. Kill the bill. That's going to really empower you, man. That's really going to empower you, you serfs, you peasants, you lowlifes, you mutants, you chuds. Get out there and lift up Elon's palanquin. What do you think? You're entitled to something for yourself? So Thomas Massey quote tweeted this. The big, beautiful bill is a debt bomb ticking. It's also the biggest missed opportunity conservatives have ever had to put our country back on a track of fiscal sanity. If we defeat this bill, a better one can be offered that won't bankrupt our country. Elon sent this out. Kill Bill. What a sense of humor that guy has.
Yeah.
Charlie Kirk here put this out. America is being sold out. Elon Musk is right. This bill will bankrupt the future. Call your reps. Wake people up. Kill the bill. This is like that last scene in Invasion of the Body Snatchers we watched the other day.
Right.
I want to see Charlie Kirk banging on windshields. They're coming. They're coming. The bill is going to destroy your lives.
They're all, I mean, this is how you can tell that this is kind of threatening to tear the grift apart of a lot of these online people, because to tell people, get on your phone and call your congressman, let's all hands on deck. We need to call hundreds of different people in the House and in the Senate to convince them one by one to vote no. You know who you can convince to kill the bill? Donald Trump. But you don't want to cross Donald Trump.
It's Trump's bill.
It's Trump's bill. He's telling them, if Donald Trump says, you know what, never mind, scrap it, that's it. It's done.
Right.
It's scrapped.
Yeah.
You only got to convince one man, but they don't want to confront that one man because that one man is half of their grift and Elon is the other half. So they want to say, call your congressman, call 300 different people and convince them one by one to vote no on the bill rather than pressure Trump.
Yeah, those people in Congress that Trump dragged into the Oval Office, according to reports, and told them to get their shit together and quit effing around to pass this bill. So they did, under much pressure from the White House. It's their fault.
Right.
It's their fault. It's not his. Who could come up with the name Big Beautiful Bill?
It's called One Big
Donald
Beautiful
Trump.
Bill.
Yeah.
That's how you know it's
that doesn't
his.
sound like a Mike Johnson turn of phrase. So speaking of which, he's given a few interviews now on this Elon thing. He's kind of the father of getting this bill through the House, so they always go to him when there's any conflict about it. So this was just this morning on Bloomberg. This is the latest.
Received a call back from Mr. Musk.
Yes, Elon, look, Elon's a good friend. We texted late last night. We're going to talk this morning. I just want to make sure that he understands what I think everybody on Capitol Hill understands. This is not a spending bill, my friends. This is a budget reconciliation bill. And what we're doing here is delivering the America First agenda. This is all of the president's priorities and all the priorities of the Republican Party. Everything we promised.
All right, I just want to pause for a second. So that is such a glaring example of politics speak. It deserves some attention. They're passing it as a reconciliation bill so that it's filibuster proof, but it's a budget bill. It's a budget bill that they're passing through reconciliation. To say it's not a budget bill because we're pulling this procedural stunt to avoid pushback from the other party, that's how stupid these people think you are.
Promise the American people. That is what we are delivering with this piece of legislation. And the reason we're using the reconciliation process is because that is the only way to get around the 60-vote threshold in the Senate.
So it's a budget
Everybody
bill.
probably recognizes Chuck Schumer and the Democrats are in no mood and not going to be helpful in delivering President Trump's agenda for the people. We have to do it this way. We can do it with 51 votes in the Senate only, and that's the urgency of the hour. And we have to do it quickly for all the reasons we can discuss this morning.
So did you get a sense from Elon Musk in those text exchange that he was going to stop his insistence on this bill that he thinks needs to be killed?
He seems pretty dug in right now, and I can't quite understand the motivation behind it. But I would tell you that what we're delivering in this bill is not only historic tax cuts, but historic savings as well. He seems to miss that. I mean, the projection is that this legislation is going to save us $1.6 trillion with a T. Now, there's never been a piece of legislation ever delivered in the history of government on the face of the earth that saves that much money. So this is truly historic. Now, is it enough? No, because all three of us understand that we have a large federal debt. We've had deficits for some time, and it's a serious concern. In fact, it's the #1 threat to our national security. But this is the biggest step in addressing that problem that Congress has ever delivered, and we must do it. And I will hasten to say this. I've told Elon and tell everyone, this is the first of a series of steps that we will take to bring that debt under control. But you can't turn it on a dime. It took us decades to get into this situation, so we have to do it incrementally, and this is a huge step forward in that endeavor.
I keep telling Elon that with these cuts, we're going to kill off a large portion of the population. The people who are left are going to be so broken, unhealthy, and disempowered, we'll be able to pass whatever we want. Right. This is the first step to disempowering the population to something like the level of medieval serfs or even classical era slave populations. Really, we want a population of helots who do our labor for us. And this is the first step on that road. And I don't know what part of that he's not understanding.
Right.
So Thomas Massey wrote a completely fucking ridiculous response. Now listen, Thomas Massey has been great on Israel. We respect the fact he takes none of that AIPAC money. He's willing to talk about things that other people almost universally will not talk about who are in the government, like AIPAC. But remember, he's a kind of a libertarian fanatic. And his understanding of who Elon is and what his motives are off base, to say the least, in our humble opinion, as I will try to demonstrate. So this is what he said. It's insincere for Speaker Johnson to insinuate Elon Musk is against the big, beautiful bill because it doesn't benefit his company specifically. That was his opening bid, Johnson's. Musk is a true America First entrepreneur who could have had a much more comfortable existence and a higher net worth by sitting on the sidelines of politics. But he cares about this country, so he got involved. He knows if America collapses financially, we aren't making it. Government waste. He watched his dealerships get firebombed. He stood for free speech by sponsoring a social media platform. And in return, the Biden administration brought half a dozen bogus cases against him. He provided the rural broad, there are a lot of people with dead loved ones who tried to use his full self-driving technology who would say that those cases are not bogus. He provided the rural broadband that politicians continually fail to provide with endless taxpayer boondoggles. He revolutionized automobiles after conventional car manufacturers got bailed out for their failures. As has been widely reported, Elon's success is largely built on billions of dollars in government grants and subsidies. And he gave our astronauts away to the space station without hitching a ride on Russian rockets. See, this is why you should never make a hero out of anybody, right? Russian rocket, right? It's going full Lindsay there. For the sake of our country, I hope he will stay engaged in politics. So remember, this is a guy who feels that the world's richest man being involved in politics is not at all problematic. Remember, that's who Thomas Massie is. He's right about some things, but he's wrong about more things. If he doesn't, I don't blame him. But I'll be here in DC trying to keep politicians of both parties from stopping the amazing human progress that he and his engineers have enabled and will enable. No, that would be his engineers. Elon has no engineering degree at all. He has a BA in business and another physics, business and physics. Right. Okay, so Thomas Massie would have you believe that Elon did this selflessly, that there's no possible motivation he could have had beyond love of country. These departments investigating Elon Musk have been cut by Doge and the Trump administration. Quick list here. NLRB, which he's suing. He's trying to argue that the National Labor Relations Board is unconstitutional. Him and Jeff Bezos are both parties to that lawsuit. EEOC, that's the Economic Opportunity Council. DOT, FAA, NASA, CFPB, of course, Humpty Dumpty, Mark Andreessen's most hated agency because it reins in criminals like him. The FEC, the DOJ, the SEC, the FDA. You might say, why the FDA? Because they were investigating those chips that he's putting in people's brains with Neuralink, and the EPA. So yeah, he was highly motivated to go into the government. What I think happened, because you could say in a lot of ways, maybe the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. Although when you're being investigated by that many agencies, even with what he suffered, you could say he came out ahead. That's a matter of some speculation. But I think that this guy thought that he was not going to get the blowback he got. I don't think Elon went into this thinking that he's going to completely destroy Tesla as a brand forever. I don't think this guy thought it through like that. I think he thought he's going to go in, he's going to retaliate against all these agencies that are investigating him, fire the people, as he did in many cases, who are responsible for investigating him, and he'd be fine. He'd be fine. I don't think he thought it through. And now he's here, and what is he going to do? So why did he turn on this bill like this? Why did this mercurial crackhead guy with 14 baby mamas all of a sudden turn on Donald Trump? Well, Axios has an article here that I think is more reasonable than Thomas Massie's vision of Elon as a selfless patriot. The legislation cuts the electric vehicle tax that helps car makers like Musk's Tesla. As of late April, his company had spent at least $240,000 lobbying on behalf of the credit and other company matters. Behind the scenes, sources say, Musk also advocated for the measure in the legislation, but to no avail. 2, Musk was working at the White House as what's called a special government employee, and he had discussed trying to stay in that role beyond the 130-day time limit set by the statute for the unpaid advisory position. but ultimately, White House officials said he couldn't keep serving in that capacity. You know, Elon, it's not me. I would love to keep you around, but we're very concerned about the law around here. And it's just my hands are tied. My hands are tied. So we'll give you a nice little send-off at the Oval Office. Thanks for everything. Thanks for nothing, Elon. Musk also wanted the Federal Aviation Administration to use his Starlink satellite system for national air traffic control, the sources said. But the administration balked at it because of the appearance of a conflict of interest. That's something with these guys. And for technological reasons. Quote, you can't have air traffic control just run off satellites, the second source said. 4. The final straw for Musk appeared to come Saturday night when Trump abruptly announced he was withdrawing the nomination of Jared Isaacman, a Musk ally, to be NASA administrator. After Isaacman's nomination was dropped, word quickly spread in the White House that Sergio Gore, the director of the Office of Presidential Personnel, who had clashed with Musk, was behind the decision. This was Sergio's out the door fuck you to Musk, one White House official said. But 2 administration insiders said that wasn't the case. Senators had complained about Isaacman for being a Democratic donor. The insider said, well, Elon was a Democratic donor. You know, I mean, a lot of these guys flipped from being Democratic donors. Mark Andreessen was a Democratic donor.
Yes.
And the White House
Alex
wanted
Karp.
Alex Karp, all these guys were, on board with the Brave New World version of fascism they were ushering in, but they'll take this version if they can't get that one. And the White House wanted a Republican loyalist. Quote, perception is reality, though, and I'm pretty sure Elon thought the Nassau situation was a last insult, the White House official said. So here we are. Yeah, that sounds like the guy who called a heroic Thai diver a pedo because he dismissed his stupid submarine into a twisty cave idea.
Right.
That sounds like something a guy that childish and vindictive would do, and the reason he would do it. Now, another reason, and this I think is criminally underexplored in a lot of the reporting, Tesla is on fire, literally and figuratively, and he's doing everything he can to project distance between himself and Donald Trump. I think a lot of this is desperation. Now, we've done a lot of reporting on the collapse of Tesla sales in America and worldwide. This is just a funny little side note. Tesla can't find legal places to store all its unsold Cybertrucks. You want a dystopian element of this. They're storing it in an abandoned mall in Detroit. In a particularly dramatic example, the increasingly unpopular pickups have been piling up in the parking lot of a shuttered Bed Bath & Beyond store in a Detroit suburb shopping center. Automotive news reports in a violation of local code. The landlord was notified that the vehicle storage was not permitted, and local officials have started the enforcement process. It's yet another sign that Tesla's Cybertruck has been a major flop. Earlier this month, Electrek reported that Tesla had amassed over 10,000 units worth a staggering $800 million of unsold Cybertruck inventory. So here is a video somebody put out on Instagram of what things are looking like in that abandoned parking lot full of Cybertrucks.
Hills, y'all. Look at what you're missing. To Farmington Hills, y'all. Look at what you're missing. Need a Cybertruck? We got you. Bed Bath & Beyond? We got you. Everything you need, right here, Farmington Hills.
Well, careful. Don't bump it. They'll send you a C-card for that if you end up scratching it by accident. Yeah.
Or based on some of the videos, you might lose a finger.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I think this is a crackhead trying to figure out how to distance himself from Trump and doing it in a way that in no way is actually going to help, because arguing you need to cut more from social services, because he's not suggesting taxing the rich. Yeah, that's not the kind of thing that's going to win back the suburban libs that were your customer base that you have now entirely alienated. This is not again. I mean, you look at that video, and these are the actions of a guy on drugs, man. Like it doesn't make any sense even as a play to distance yourself from Trump. So is it just I mean, because the way you're going about it is not going to win back that customer base. It's just it's just MAGA drama. It's just playing as inter-MAGA fighting, not, oh, Elon had a change of heart. So it's not going to help the Tesla brand. It looks like, he's throwing a tantrum. I think the Axios article probably has it mostly right. He didn't get anything for his 200 some odd $million, and he's throwing a hissy fit.
Yeah, he's angry, as I predicted he would be. One of my predictions for 2025 would be that Doge disbands, and that Doge just ends in total failure. It wasn't hard to see coming. On a personal level, you have Elon Musk and Donald Trump, two very aggressive billionaires who are not used to being told no. They're not used to having to compromise with people. So those two egos working side by side at the White House, at a certain point, they are going to be at odds over something, and it's not going to be reconcilable. The beginning of the end for this was, and I've said it over and over again, but it's true, so I have to, was the Wisconsin Supreme Court race.
Right.
He threw $25 million into that, and they didn't just lose, they got crushed. They lost by 10 points. Trump won the state in November, and whenever that was, March, they lost by 10. That sent a very loud and clear signal to Trump, who is a much more savvy politician than he is a businessman, oddly enough, that Elon is a loser at this point. He's a loser. And once you're a loser, you're of no more use to Trump. And don't think that the down ballot candidates didn't see that as well. They're already up against what's going to be a very, very challenging midterm for their party. And look, unlike Elon Musk, who's worth $400 billion, a lot of these Congress people make $170,000 a year, and they're counting on that revolving door being open for them when they leave Congress. That only is the case if you maintain a baseline level of respectability within the system. And so if you are seen as on the hook for ushering in the kind of dystopia that these cuts, as written, will usher in, never mind the millions more cuts that Elon wants them to make on top of that, that is not a sell to these people. Like, they can't afford to do that. These congressmen from rural Kentucky somewhere, they can't afford to do that. They can't afford to entertain Elon's, Javier Milei version of the future. They can't. It's a non-starter for them. They have limits as to how far they can go. Elon has no limits because he's the richest man on earth. And so ultimately, so ultimately, even if he does take a hit, he'll be the 5th or 6th richest man on earth. It's not existential for him the way it is to a lot of these people who he's asking to put their career on the line for something that is obviously and transparently totally insane. And so I think that explains this falling out, and I think that explains why this was not terribly difficult to see coming.
Also, remember, and this is the only reason I hold out any hope that this entire project collapses, narcissists don't work well together.
Right.
And you always see this in these kind of authoritarian fascist systems. Who's attracted to those kinds of systems? Beta crackpots who like to worship a strong leader, and self-serving narcissists trying to get something out of the corruption that inevitably results in these kinds of authoritarian systems where it's all pay to play and greasing the leader. That's a very unstable coalition, and that is really our only hope as a nation, that this just collapses under the weight of its own collection of dysfunctional personalities.
Yep. Well said. Well said. Kenman G says, congrats to DD on having 100,000 more subscribers in the Saga and Jetty fan club. I love your show. Keep making it, and I'll keep watching and supporting. Thank you, Kenman. Appreciate that.
Thank you, man.
265005 says, also mayo on hot dogs is for real. Chads, Beta Keaton. Thank you for that. In this awful time, says Furrow's Queen, someone unexpectedly tells you something you didn't know you needed to hear. It's easy to forget to live in your own moment. It can be cruel, but life really is beautiful. Thank you, Furrow's Queen.
Oh.
Appreciate that.
Oh, that was nice.
That was nice. Flipping awesome guy says, oh, George, congrats. And a loud burp. Thank you, oh, George, from Haifa. Actually, Haifa's mentioned in our next story. Let's have a cowbell for oh, George for that $50 donation. That's very kind of you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that, my friend. Okay, let's go over to YouTube. J.H. Scott says, Russell, love the Alex Jones impression you did on Post-Duopoly. Oh, I have to watch that.
Thank you.
Zaldivar, thanks for the $2. Congrats on the 100K. Revolution is the remedy. Thank you, Zaldivar. Appreciate that. Kuznetsky Bassane, thanks for the 1999, says, wishing DD a million more subscribers. That's very nice of you. Thank you. Kuznetsky was saying, appreciate that. We are at 668 likes in the YouTube chat. There we go.
Feels weird. When I get a haircut, I don't have any hair.
Yeah, I know. You don't have any hair to head back.
My head with.
1,900 strong in the YouTube chat. Thanks for being here. 673 over on Rumble. Smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and that follow button wherever you are. Gavin Hillock says, congrats on the 100K. I'd tell you to come to Ireland, Keaton, but we're way ahead of you with the censorship. You might say we're all in the vanguard. Thank you, Gavin. Yeah, stuff to consider for sure. Okay, we will move right on along. Okay, this is a good story, and this is a story that has really gotten no press amongst American mainstream outlets. So I actually had to source a lot of this from foreign language reporting. So I did a lot of translating myself here with the help of the Google machine. So Mint Press News tweets out, French dock workers refuse to load weapons due for Israel. Dock workers at the port of Marseille Faux are refusing to load a 14-ton shipment of weapons intended for Israel. In a press release, they declared, we will not participate in the ongoing genocide orchestrated by the Israeli government. According to their statement, the containers have been set aside and the dockers will not go onto the ship bound for Haifa. They further emphasize that the port of Marseille Faux must not be used to supply the Israeli army. So the union put out a press release. This press release was, of course, in French. And so I actually translated this word for word using Google Translate. I did a
You didn't use your French to English dictionary?
No, I did it all with the Google machine.
That would be a lot more impressive, honestly.
Yeah, no, that was not going to happen at midnight last night when I did this. But I did a mitzvah and I tweeted this out so that everybody on the Twitter machine can read this. So here is the full press release from the Dock Workers Union. French dock workers refuse transport weapons to Israel. Their press release translated to English via Google Translate below. The CGT, General Union of Dock Workers and Port Personnel of the Gulf of Faux, was alerted by several networks that 19 pallets of belts from Eurolink, those are ammo belts for guns, a Marseille company, were to be loaded by container this Thursday afternoon via the port of Marseille, bound for the port of Haifa in Israel. These Eurolink belts are spare parts for machine guns used by the Israeli army to continue the massacre of the Palestinian population. We repeat it again and again. The dockers and port workers of the Gulf of Faux will not participate in the ongoing genocide orchestrated by the Israeli government. We are for peace between peoples. We are opposed to all wars. We deplore all armed conflicts that cause death, misery, and the exodus of populations. After alerting our employers and the relevant authorities, we were able to locate this container filled with Eurolink belts. This container has been set aside, and the dockers will not load it onto the ship bound for Haifa. The port of Marseille Faux must not be used to supply the Israeli army. For peace, for an end to wars in the world, for a society free from capitalist exploitation, signed the Union.
Anti-Semites.
Yeah, indeed. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So following suit, you have Jonathan Shafi tweets out Italian dock workers have followed the French example in refusing to ship arms to the genocide. So apparently this same vessel is also going to port in Italy en route to Israel. And so the Italian Dock Workers Union also issued a statement that they will participate in this protest action, essentially saying if the French are strong-armed into loading those parts, we will not transport the ship either. Dock workers in France refused to load cargo of weapons for Israel, ready for picket in Genoa, too. So they joined the action. So what you have here is an example of people at their place of work doing what they can as workers to disrupt these genocidal campaigns. So this is an example of nonviolent direct action that is totally legal. I mean, they might get fired. They might get in trouble from their boss if they don't do it. But there's nothing illegal about saying, hey, look, we are not loading this piece of cargo. Fire us. Fine. Whatever. If the French government wants to send these weapons, all of those members of parliament can come down here and load them on themselves. We're not doing it. And if enough people take actions like this, you can shut the system down. And I think a huge reason why this story got no coverage in the American mainstream press is because it is always the case, much less this specific circumstance where you're talking about a genocide being committed by our quote-unquote key ally. But it's always the case that they don't want workers to know what power they have. They don't want workers reading about instances where workers at their workplace exercise political power. But you do have political power as workers if you band together in solidarity and use it. So Mondo Weiss puts out, an injury to Palestine is an injury to all. Join the Palestinian workers' May Day call to act now against Israeli genocide. So this was obviously put out in the end of April in the run-up to the May 1st May Day holiday. But they do make some points about why Palestine is a labor issue. An injury to one is an injury to all. The Israeli settler colonial regime is part of the same U.S.-backed system of racist state violence that brutalizes Black, Indigenous, African, Arab, Middle Eastern, Muslim, Asian, and working-class people in the global South and around the world. With Israel's knee on their neck, Palestinians can't breathe, and we unconditionally stand with them, just as they have stood with our struggles for Black and brown lives, Standing Rock, migrant rights, and beyond. Our tax dollars fund Israel. Israel's crimes are committed with tens of billions in bipartisan U.S. weaponry, tax dollars that should be spent instead to reverse Israeli destruction in Palestine and on badly needed jobs, food, housing, healthcare, education, and transportation for poor and working people at home. Our workplaces arm Israel. Many of our unionized factories, logistics, academia, tech, and other workplaces, without our consent, produce weapons, transportation, research, technology, and other materials for the genocidal Israeli regime. Our unions fund Israel. Our unions are already involved on the wrong side. In the 1920s to 30s, top labor officials donated millions to the Histadrut, the Zionist labor federation that spearheaded anti-Palestinian dispossession, apartheid, and ethnic cleansing, including the Nakba that established the Israeli state in 1948. For more than 70 years, they have used our union dues and pension funds to buy billions of dollars worth of Israeli bonds. Today, despite horrendous Palestinian casualties, most labor officials remain silent or worse. Global working class solidarity is the only way to win. More than ever in this era of globalization, workers and oppressed people everywhere are up a common enemy. We can't win. What's that?
I mean, it's not your fault. It's an error there.
Yeah.
Or up against a common enemy.
Up against the common enemy. Yeah, as a typo or omission. We can't win if we are atomized by union or even country. We need international class-wide unity. That means every worker must take on the task of building solidarity with Palestine, today an epicenter of class struggle. Workers can stop Israeli genocide. More than 50 years ago, Arab and black auto workers led a wildcat strike and other actions to protest UAW complicity with Israel. Today, we can follow their example in respecting the BDS picket line by protesting, bringing union resolutions, and above all, by mobilizing our collective power at the workplace. Yes, as shown by dockers in South Africa, India, Sweden, Norway, Turkey, Italy, Belgium, and the ILWU on the west coast of the United States, which has respected the Block the Boats community labor picket line by refusing to handle Israeli cargo. In Italy, they did a protest action in May of 2021, which was the latest flare-up of violence in that region prior, of course, to October 7th, 2023. And so labor actions to disrupt Israel's genocidal campaigns, whether it's this most recent one or ones past, have succeeded in slowing the transfer of weapons. And they will succeed 2, 3, 4, and 5-fold, depending on how many workers get involved. And like I said, the reason why I had to do a lot of searching and translating of foreign language sources for this segment, even though it's not a particularly long segment, that's the long and the short of it right there, is because American media does not want workers to feel empowered. They don't want them to feel like they can use their power as workers to affect change. Work and politics are separate. You go to work, you come home. If you have an hour to watch the news and get politically informed, great. If not, even better. They don't want you thinking, hey, what if those 8 hours we spend at work every single day, what if we can use those hours and use that time to organize our workers and actually affect change that way? They do not want you thinking about that. They want you to think of that as an impossibility, no matter the context. Obviously, these circumstances are especially severe given what's happening, but that is their attitude towards workers and the workplace as a forum for political organization in general. And that's why I think it is important to highlight instances like this where workers have success in taking peaceful, and in this case, fully legal, direct action to disrupt the Israeli genocide.
Yes. Well, this is really where you can see how much the media is controlled by their largely corporate owners at this point. Go look at news from the 70s. When I was a little kid, when you would watch the news, it would be boring to me because I was a little kid. It'd be all kinds of labor reporting. It would be this union is on strike, boring stuff. I've mentioned this before, man. There was a TV show about a union steel worker with Carl Malden. Can you imagine them producing a show? It was called Skag. Can you imagine them producing a show like that today? Yeah, Norma Ray. Not. Do you see movies like that anymore? Really idealizing unions and the people who make them up. They don't do that, and that's quite intentional. That is why they needed identity politics. They had to put something in that void. They had to take away the real democratic debate about the conditions of our society, about the economic welfare of the people. They had to put something in there. They can't just report cats stuck in trees every day. Right? Everything's great. Oh, it's another beauty. They can't just do that. So they had to create something that people could fixate on to create an illusion of having a meaningful debate about the progress of society. They stuck identity politics into that space. And this is why you are much more likely to see a headline in all of these media outlets about some racial transgression in some town that you're supposed to get absolutely obsessed with. I'm not saying things like that are not important, but there is a reason that they fixate on that to the exclusion of all other things. And you can see that play out in people who think of themselves as left. They almost never have anything to say about economics and class. That is the end result of a decades-long effort to create a left that would be divisive and that would be off-putting to most of the laboring class with their absolute fixation on things that for the most part, those people don't care about. They care about wages. They care about health care. They have distracted society with these issues that, Keaton always said this, I'll cover culture because I feel like you have to. That's what makes it a perfect trap, because you kind of can't ignore it because they're putting it there. You kind of have to say something about it. But you're right in that, the whole purpose of it is really to distract. So you're put, as a commentator, you're put in a very difficult position. Do you ignore this shiny object that they're trying to get everyone to pay attention to effectively, or do you take it on and risk reinforcing that whole that whole technique? But yeah, man, you can have massive labor strikes with no headlines about it, no reporting about it. It's amazing. It's amazing. And you can see how intentional it is. You can find these all over YouTube. Go look up any newscast from 1972.
Right.
You're almost definitely going to have reporting about labor.
Oh, and when they do cover a labor strike, it's always from the perspective of, hey, so when are you guys going to fold this up so you can get back to work? Because this is costing ordinary people money. The shelves are empty. The prices are going up. You guys can't be doing this. So when are you going to knock it off? Yeah, right. They're the villains. Exactly. All right. What do we got here? Oh, yeah. Let's do our scroll. Do you have stuff to load in, or are you good?
I mean, I'm good for now. I'd rather go, I had a little coffee. I'll be back.
Oh, all right. Very good. All righty, folks. Hey, if you like what we do here and you want to help us get to 200,000 subscribers, the best way to do it by far is to become a member. DoDissidents.com/Patreon, /Substack, or /Locals. If you're watching on our Rumble channel, you can join our locals by clicking the bright red join button directly below the video player. But those links at the top all take you to our member-based platforms. The people you're seeing on the scroll now are the backbone of the show. They are why we were able to hit that 100,000 subscriber mark on YouTube. And while it is a great pleasure and an honor to have hit that milestone, we do have to remember these are censorious tech platforms where the lights can be turned off on us at any moment for any reason. The ADL just came out and said they want to kick anti-Zionist voices off of social media. That includes the platform that we're on right now, of course. So the best way that you can safeguard this project against censorship of that kind is by becoming a member, because as long as we have enough members, we can always keep the project going in one form or another. But without the members, we are a house of cards, and it can fall apart at any second. So that's why we say the members are really the backbone of the show. So if you like what we do, the best way to help us is by pitching in $5 a month at Substack, Patreon, or Locals and becoming a member. Perks of membership include your name up in lights here on the scroll. You get access to our weekly Q&A call-ins. You also get access to our members-only post-game streams and film club live streams. You also get every live stream emailed to you ad-free the day after it airs live. So if you miss a show and you want to watch it back free of ad interruption, those links get emailed out the day after every show. So once again, our members are the backbone of the show. It's not YouTube. It's the members. DoDissidents.substack.com, DoDissidents.locals.com, Patreon.com/DoDissidents to sign up and help get us to 200K. There you go. All right. Let's go to the yuppies. When it comes to Gaza, my friends have all been telling me they don't care about the issue because people die in war. Any tips on how to counter this shit happens argument? I mean, send them some videos. I watched a video yesterday.
Listen, man, I was talking to Gabor Mate about this. Tantora is the most effective documentary I have found for making people think about this differently.
Yeah, there you go. So that's one. But yeah, send them some videos. Make it visceral for them. I saw a video the other day. You know, we see videos every day. Every once in a while, you see one that hits you in a way that the others don't. There's these two kids, these two like 3 or 4-year-old kids, sitting amidst rubble, holding each other, crying to each other while bombs go off in back of them. And they had no grown-ups around to comfort them. Who knows where their families are? Who knows if they are still with us? It's just these two poor little kids, maybe probably 3 years old, just forced to comfort each other in a pile of rubble while bombs go off. Like, that kind of stuff is just, it really...
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I mean, it hits you, you know, things hit you every day.
Yeah.
So show videos to them. Don't leave it up to, you know, media headlines. Don't leave it up to the New York Times to write an article about it where everything is qualified, this and that. Show them the primary sources. That would be my advice. And yes, as Russ said, Tantura is something that really has an effect on people. That movie is free on YouTube, and it seemed like Gabber concurred. He seemed to agree that was a very powerful movie in that way.
Well, because it shows you that even the narrative, it didn't start out this way, is wrong.
Right.
It shows you it started out exactly this way. This is what Israel has always been.
Right. Exactly. Nexus Games, and it's an act, and Elon and Trump are in on this. Tesla stock is his main objective. Ovin the King, thanks for the $5. Come on, guys. We crave the dead as much as the children crave the return to the mines. LOL. Thank you. Elon is the fall guy. Tim Dillon. Thanks, Skyman. Appreciate that. Skyman says the political discourse in America has been hijacked by man children with daddy issues and adult diaper rash. Yep, that is...
Yep.
That is well put. That is well put. Yes.
Yeah, I finally got to the infamous Times Square statue.
Yeah.
And so I did a video, like, you know, I mean, seeing it up close, I thought what I thought I would think. Like, why would this bother you?
Right.
It's not even a permanent exhibit.
Right.
So, of course, you know, I get chuds. What's the purpose of this statue? Statues are meant to represent greatness and ideals. No. That's a certain type of statue. That's a certain type of, one of the most famous statues in Florence is Porcelino, the pig. Is that meant to represent an ideal? The idea that they've never represented common people, working people, slice of life images and statuary. This is what the podcasters who spread these kinds of ideas rely on. A completely ignorant audience that they can tell anything to.
Exactly. And that's what this is. Yes. Man children with daddy issues and adult diaper rash. Yep. It's basically a movement of closeted homosexuals with fatty liver disease at this point. That's basically MAGA. That's who owns the country now. That's who runs the country. Steve McNally, thanks for the $100. Appreciate that. Let's have a cowbell for Steve McNally. Congratulations, gents. Well-earned, hard-earned, free Palestine. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that very much. Okay. All right. If you are ready, I'm ready. Let's go on. Okay. This is the big one, folks. Hey, we had a big event in New York City last night, a marquee event. And no, it was not Russell's photo op at the statue in Times Square. It was the mayoral debate.
Although that was big.
That was big.
But this was bigger. For some reason, more people watched this. We had our big mayoral debate where 9 candidates, only 2 of which anyone's paying any attention to, vied to become the next mayor of our illustrious city here. Now, this race has heated up a little bit because Cuomo, the sex criminal who killed a lot of people's grandmas and granddads, has been solidly in the lead, but his self-described socialist competitor, Zohran Mamdani, has come. We have ranked choice voting now in New York, and on the ranked choice side, he's about 8.5 points behind Cuomo, which is a big jump. He started out when he got into the race very much like the Sanders kind of trajectory, 2 to 5%.
Right. So the way this works, just very, very briefly, the counting stops when one candidate crosses 50. So that's why it took 10 rounds for Cuomo to cross 50, which is a lot. That shows you he is struggling.
Right. And Adams, you might wonder why Adams was not in the debate. He's actually running as an independent.
Yep.
Which I think is wise as far as it goes. I think He saw he was going to get embarrassed by losing the Democratic primary as the incumbent mayor, which almost certainly I think would have happened. But it's really it's a sad statement on New York politics that these are our choices. Now I know a lot of people like Mamdani. I did get to meet him and interview him very briefly at one of the Tesla protests. I was not impressed. I asked him a very direct question about what you would say to people who have been disillusioned by the Bernie campaigns about getting into your campaign. And he ducked that. Like I asked him how he feels about making 16 years the age of consent. Like he would not answer that straight. He went into his whole politician song and dance. So, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. My impression is he's a very slick, talented politician without a lot of substance behind him. I would love to be proven wrong. That having been said, he was head and shoulders the only human on that stage in a kind of menagerie of grotesqueries. So this was early in the debate. He had a pretty interesting and sharp exchange with Mr. Cuomo.
Difference between myself and Andrew Cuomo is that my campaign is not funded by the very billionaires who put Donald Trump in D.C. I don't have to pick up the phone from Bill Ackman or Ken Langone. I have to pick up the phone for the more than 20,000 New Yorkers who contributed an average donation of about $80 to break fundraising records and put our campaign in second place.
Okay, Mr. Mamdani, thank you. Mr. Cuomo, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, please. Mr. Mamdani is very good on Twitter and with videos, but he actually produces nothing. For him to accuse me of lying. He also called President Obama a liar and said President Obama was evil. So take everything with a grain of salt. Donald Trump would go through Mr. Mamdani like a hot knife through butter. He's been in government 27 minutes. He passed 3 bills. That's all he's done. He has no experience with Washington, no experience in New York City. He would be Trump's delight.
All right, brief response, Mr. Mamdani, then we have to move on.
Look, it's true that I don't have experience with corrupt Trump billionaires who are funding my campaign. I don't have experience with party politics and insider consultants. I do have experience, however, with winning $450 million in debt relief for thousands of working class taxi drivers and actually delivering it to the working class people.
Thank you, Mr. Mamdani. Mr.
Okay, so very talented. He's a 35-year-old guy, as Cuomo put in, very cutting fashion. Hasn't been in politics long. Great poise. Never saw him get rattled. You want to see how much poise that guy has? Go watch our live coverage from the Tesla dealership, because there's a woman, I don't even know what handle she goes by. We keep running into her.
No, she calls herself Crackhead Barbie.
Is that what she calls herself?
That's her handle, yeah.
Crackhead Barbie chased him half naked for like 4 blocks, and he didn't miss a beat. He took it in good humor, handled that about as well as you could handle something like that. So, he's very talented. He is very talented. I will say that. So Cuomo, of course, was asked about the sexual harassment. We don't need to see that. He denied it. More importantly, he was asked about undercounting the COVID deaths and whether he lied to Congress when he said that they hadn't undercounted the deaths.
Whether or not it's political and whether or not your congressional testimony was truthful, were you, now that you've had time to reflect, involved in producing that report that undercounted those nursing home deaths?
Oh, there was no doubt that my administration produced the report, and it did not undercount the deaths.
Okay, but you're still saying you were not involved in producing it.
It's very clear. That's the Trump line, the MAGA line, right? Because this was during the Trump reelection.
Okay.
The New York reports always counted the number of deaths where they occurred, in a nursing home or in a hospital.
Okay.
Now that all the dust is clear.
Okay, we have to move on, though. We have to give other people a chance. We'll all have a lot more time on other subjects.
Yes or no?
It's a very easy answer. All right, hold on, candidates.
Did you lie to Congress?
All right.
Will you acknowledge the deaths?
Okay.
I mean, it's a very black and white. Okay. Did you lie to Congress, or will you acknowledge the death? 15,000 people died, and he still won't answer your question.
All right, here's the chance to answer the question as Melissa presented it.
Yes.
Mr. Cuomo.
No, I told Congress the truth. No, we did not undercount any deaths. When they are all counted, we're number 38 out of 50, which I think shows that compared to what other states went through, we had it first and worst, and that only 12 states had a lower rate of death. We should really be thanking the women and men who worked in those nursing homes and did an extraordinary
very
job.
quick yes or no follow-up, if I may. Just the question is, were you involved in the producing of that report? It's just a yes or no question.
I was very aware of the report. I spoke to it at press conferences.
No, before it was
multiple
released,
times,
Mr.
and I
Cuomo. The
stand
question is
by
about the
report.
production of the report.
And
the
answer.
creation.
All right, I think
Okay,
I
we're going to move on. We're not getting an
report.
answer. We're not
I
going to.
stand by the report.
No, it was just to whether or not you were involved.
Let's move on.
Okay.
Mr. Myrie.
Yeah, he would not answer it. He would, as you could see.
No, do I have this right? Is he saying that because there were certain people who died at hospitals instead of nursing homes, was the implication of the report that those were not his fault, even if they may have gotten sick in a nursing home? Because they didn't die at the nursing home? That's what it seems like they're trying to do.
It seems like that's what he's saying. He's saying that our numbers on their terms were correct. There were other numbers, but he would not answer the very direct question, well, were you involved in the preparation? I was aware of it. I knew about it. I heard about it. A guy told me about it. He went Jackie Mason there. Now, I must say the moderators, it's funny because you watch these national debates with the people that they get for those. These moderators were very New York, man. They took no shit, as you can see there. Okay, he's not going to answer it. All right, we're gonna move on. It was a very New York style moderation, which I actually appreciated. Okay, the best mic drop of the entire evening did not come from either of the two principal candidates. It came from Michael Blake. Here's what he said about the greatest threat to the safety of New Yorkers.
Mr. Blake.
The people who don't feel safe are young women, mothers, and grandmothers around Andrew Cuomo. That's the greatest threat to public safety in New York City. Now,
that I thought was the highlight of the entire evening. Okay, so Cuomo and the rest of them, they were all asked, but I'm only going to take a look at Cuomo's answer here. They were asked about what Trump is doing with trying to take away the accreditation of places like Columbia, and they were also asked about Khalil. Now, to a person, pretty much, except I think Mamdani, I don't think he got into the rising anti-Semitism thing. Pretty much all of them accepted that framing that there's rising anti-Semitism. But all of them, of course, expressed opposition to Trump's attack on Columbia. All of them also said Khalil should be freed. There was one guy up there, Tillerson, I think his name is. Never heard of this guy. He was the real like Clintonian right-wing Democrat on the committee. And he leaned into, well, they have to prove their case. He was the most wishy-washy about it. But even he conceded that there was no due process here. So here's what Cuomo said about these things.
I think you have two separate issues. Number one, I do believe there's been anti-Semitism in the city. I believe it's a growing problem. And I believe the rhetoric about Israel has actually inflamed the anti-Semitism. Put that aside, I think this is just another overreach of the Trump administration. Now he's going to take over the academic universities in this country. He is literally attacking the foundation of democracy, and he must be opposed at every turn. This is a continuation of Trump eroding democracy, chipping away at due process. He should be released. He should be released immediately. He shouldn't have been detained in the first place.
Okay, so Andrew Cuomo here would have you believe, in the end, although he's pro-Israel and although he believes there's rising anti-Semitism, he's against the Trump administration's assault on free speech. In the end, he's a civil libertarian. Well, that's not what he said just a couple of weeks ago at an event in the wake of the embassy shootings.
Hate grows. Yesterday did not happen in a vacuum. There has been a progressive rhetoric, political mobilization, that has been against Israel and has been anti-Semitic. We have not enforced the laws that we have in place. People say the issue is personal. It's personal for me also. I'm a New Yorker. It's personal.
I
to
am
my
gay.
family,
I
to
am
my
black.
brothers-in-law,
I
to my
am
son-in-law,
Latino. I am a woman.
to my
I am
friends.
trans.
As mayor, I would institute the IHRA standard all across the board. I would want every school child to visit the Holocaust Museum. We can have zero tolerance for anti-Semitic activity, period. Enforce the law. The law is clear, and enforce the law.
Okay, so to be clear, the IHRA standard is the standard the Trump administration is going with. To be anti-Zionist, to be critical of Israel, is to be anti-Semitic. So there really is no daylight between his view and the Trump administration's view. If he were to become mayor and adopt that standard, I, for example, could have the police coming to my door for this show if you apply that standard. He's saying we need to enforce the laws, and he wants the law to be based on that standard. Well, then all of these students would be liable to getting arrested, including Mahmoud Khalil, who he says he thinks should be freed. Well, you don't think he should be freed if you believe that the IHRA standard should be the standard for prosecution.
Right.
Now, there should...
and if you,
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Don't mean to cut you off, but the IHRA standard says that to call Israel a racist state, which it very plainly is, according to their own admission, meaning the mayoral candidates, most of them later in the debate, I'm sure you have the piece where Mamdani talks about equal rights in Israel. Do you have that video? Okay, so we'll save that for later. But Israel, I mean, they admit Israel's a racist state.
Right.
But saying that violates the IHRA's definition of anti-Semitism, which he just said we have laws on the books, enforce them using the IHRA standard. So that is a whole lot of free speech hypocrisy on display there from Andrew Cuomo, who sings a different tune when he's speaking to all New Yorkers than he does when he's speaking to a Jewish group. This is how he operates.
Exactly.
You know, he'll say one thing behind closed.
Yeah,
that's his whole thing. That's how he was able to maintain that coalition with the, forget the group. There was a caucus of Democrats, the IDC, Independent Democrat Council, I believe it was, in Albany, who were Democrats in name, but always caucus with Republicans to stymie progressive legislation. Yeah, he'll go into a closed room. He'll tell one group what they want to hear, and then he'll project something different to the masses. He'll talk about his mother's meatballs and Mr. Nice Italian grandpa
he'll do prop comedy with his brother. Yeah.
Exactly. That's classic Cuomo bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this should be no surprise, because how has he been making ends meet since he got driven out by, like the sex criminal he is, from the governor's mansion? Andrew Cuomo joins high-powered legal team to defend Netanyahu against ICC's war crime claims. Oh, yeah, man. We need this guy as mayor. He's really going to fight against the Trump administration's jackbooted attempts to suppress speech in the city. Wow. We got to get that guy in office. Okay, so this is just kind of funny. They were asked who the most effective Democrat is, and their answers were pretty revealing. Hang on, did I get that in there?
Yeah, you have that. Jeffries, right there. It's right near Cuomo, right near his face.
Where is it?
It's right
there.
Mr. Stringer, right now, who's the most effective Democrat in the country?
It's not Eric Adams.
Trying to think of a New Yorker who raises a lot of money who might endorse me.
I mean, this guy, every time he spoke, I thought of the Simpsons character. Cleveland!
Yeah.
I would say the most effective Democrat right now is Hakeem
Not
Jeffries.
I.
Okay. Mr. Blake?
Not me.
I would say myself, because I actually defeated Donald Trump when I was vice chair of the DNC.
Mr. Mamdani?
Mayor Wu of Boston.
Mr. Tilson?
My old friend Cory Booker, after his 25-hour Herculean.
Thank you, Mr. Tilson. Mr. Cuomo?
Hakeem Jeffries.
Mr. Myrie?
Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins.
Ms. Ramos?
Maryland Governor Moore.
Mr. Lander?
Boston Mayor Michelle Wu.
Ms. Adams?
I would have to say the next speaker
would be Hakeem Jeffries.
Okay,
Wow.
so 3 out of 9, fully 1/3 said Hakeem Jeffries, and one of them said Cory Booker. So this is the Hakeem Jeffries that they say is the most effective Democrat in the country.
Figure out what leverage we actually have. What leverage do we have? They control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. It's their government. What leverage do we have?
The most effective Democrat in the country, ladies and gentlemen. Cuomo answered that. Stringer answered that, and Adams, Adrian Adams answered that.
Well, what's so transparent
Adrian
about
Adams,
that?
who is AOC's number 2 pick, by the way.
Wow. Yeah, no, what's so transparent about that is just how sleazy these people. It's like they don't. I guess when you have a base that is as credulous as the Democratic primary voting base, you can be so opportunistic and so two-faced in broad daylight and trust they won't pick up on anything. There's only one reason why you would say Hakeem Jeffries is the most effective Democrat in the country. Because you want an endorsement. He is a very high profile, money bundling New York politician, and in the home stretch of the campaign, you feel like his endorsement would pull some weight, and so you're blowing some smoke up his ass. That's clearly what that is about. There is no way any of those people actually believe that Mr. What power, what leverage do we have? Hakeem Jeffries is the most effective Democrat in America. There's absolutely no way they think that.
Right.
So then you have to say, well, why would they say that? Well, why would they say that? Hakeem Jeffries is an extremely high-profile and extremely well-funded New York City politician whose support could come in handy in a close race down the home stretch. That's exactly why they said there's no other reason why they would say that. No other reason on earth.
Okay, so more damning than that. That one's just kind of funny in its demonstration of how corrupt these people are, as you say. Worse than that, they were asked what your first foreign trip as mayor would be. Now, I cut it down to the 4 out of 9 who said it would be Israel, in addition to Mamdani's answer, which probably was the highlight of the evening in terms of somebody actually resisting these narratives.
Would you go first? Left to right, Ms. Adams.
First visit, I would visit the Holy Land.
Okay, again, this is AOC's number 2 pick on the ranked choice ballot, who's also has a background that she seemed very proud of. She mentioned it in the course of the evening as a corporate attorney. First trip, Holy Land. So AOC's second choice in the ranked choice voting is a former corporate lawyer who says Hakeem Jeffries is the most competent Democrat in the country, the most effective Democrat in the country, and says our first trip would be to Israel.
And where would you go first? Left to right, Ms. Adams.
First visit, I would visit the Holy Land.
Mr. Cuomo.
Given the hostility and the anti-Semitism that has been shown in New York, I would go to Israel.
Mr. Tilson, where would you go?
Yeah, I'd make my 4th trip to Israel, followed by my 5th trip to Ukraine, 2 of our greatest allies fighting on the front lines of the global war on terror.
Mr. Mamdani.
My oversized
I
yellow
would
ribbon.
stay in New York City. My plans are to address New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs and focus on that.
Mr. Mamdani, can I just jump in? Would you visit Israel as mayor?
I will be doing, as the mayor, I'll be standing up for Jewish New Yorkers, and I'll be meeting them wherever they are across the 5 boroughs, whether that's in their synagogues and temples or at their homes or at the subway platform, because ultimately we need to focus on delivering on their concerns.
And just yes or no, do you believe in a Jewish state of Israel?
I believe Israel has the right to exist.
Not
as a Jewish state?
As a state with equal rights.
He won't,
Okay.
he
Not
won't
as a
say it
Jewish
has a
state.
right to exist as a
And-
Jewish state. Be very
And
clear
his
on
answer was no, he won't visit Israel.
I said that.
That's what he was
unlike
trying
you,
to say.
No, unlike
No,
you, I
you
answer.
never-
Unlike
you
you, I
never
answer
said
questions
no.
very
Okay.
directly,
All right,
and I want to be
you
very
answered-
clear. I
you answered.
believe every state should be a state of equal rights.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mamdani. Mr. All right, I'm sorry.
My goal would be to take my first trip to Israel. My wife's life work in this area means a lot to our family, and it could coincide with my young son Miles' bar mitzvah, if you'd like to have his bar mitzvah.
Okay, but a minute.
I have to take a page out of Douglas Murray's playbook. You've never been? You're
You've
telling me
never
that
been?
guy? Put that guy up on the screen again. Pause it. That guy has never been to Israel? That guy? They should put
Yeah.
that guy's face on Israeli postcards. That guy's never been there. I've never been to Israel? Really? Wow, that is a surprise.
Okay, so Mamdani clearly in a tough spot there. Now, for anyone who does not know, understand this is a very difficult spot to be in if you are running for mayor of New York. The only place with more Jews than New York City in it is Israel.
Yeah.
So and most of them are Zionists. That's just a fact. So that is, hey man, credit where credit is due. The easy answer there is yes, I would visit. I believe the easy answer is a two-state solution. Like you want to say that you're like liberal, right? Oh, I believe in rights for both of them. Go with the Clinton kind of triangulation on it. He didn't give in to that. That is not easy if you are running for mayor of New York. The rest of them, hey, listen, as a Jew, I keep saying this. You are really not helping with anti-Semitism by going up in a race for leader of probably the most important city in the world's most powerful empire, and to have almost half of you demonstrate that you feel a need to loudly proclaim that you're going to go to Israel first of all countries on earth that you could go to, that you need to go to Israel first. That does not help with the perception that Jews have some kind of mysterious behind the scenes power that all the powerful have to bow to. You're really reinforcing that with this kind of a display of submission to the Israel lobby, really. So that is not helping what they claim to be helping with that kind of a gesture. It would be almost impossible to completely antagonize that community and get elected mayor of New York. That is true. But at the same time, I'm sorry, my bell just rang. At the same time, somebody like Andrew Cuomo, who has alienated so much of the city, he could lose. Like Mamdani's definitely got the progressive Bernie volunteers going out knocking on doors. I know some of these people who are knocking on doors for Mamdani, who are donating for Mamdani. He definitely has that late breaking insurgent momentum. Is it enough in this home world of the shit libs to overcome their reticence to nominate anyone who's not the establishment, much less a self-described socialist who wants to make the buses free and tax the rich that you're already seeing this hysteria in the press about? Probably not. And that's what I asked him about, which he didn't want to answer. If this had been even 5 years ago, I'm sure this very show would have been heavily promoting his campaign. We've hardly talked about it because we don't want to get a bunch of people involved in the Democratic Party to begin with, but this is part of why. The voters are shit in the party, particularly in New York, and their primaries are rigged. Like, why get a bunch of people all backing this guy who I have my suspicions about anyway? What? So you can come within 2 points instead of coming within 5 points? Like, for what? For what? And so it's strange. Like, he's definitely got a certain progressive momentum, but our whole space has been pretty much silent about this race. And that is why I asked him that question, which he ducked. Also, the fact, and I'm not just saying this because he didn't come on our channel, which we asked him to several times. He's only gone on what? Piker, Breaking Points. Even when he was at 2 to 5, he was not doing what you would expect an insurgent, real progressive to do. Go talk to everybody, right? You'd particularly want to be talking to podcasts in this space. And at that time, like now he's running second, he can snag bigger channels. At that time, he couldn't. And we know people who know him who approached him. He wouldn't come on our show, and I didn't see him go on anybody else's. That's part of why I'm suspicious of him, because he does not behave like somebody who's really an insurgent. He behaves to me more like somebody who wasn't in with the establishment and saw his best path to power as being to take advantage of the volunteer and donation potential of the progressive movement, very much as Bernie Sanders did.
Well, I mean, obviously he's doing something right if he's gaining like this, and I think that's probably a function of the fact that Cuomo is just too odious. That was always the sort of X factor. I expected Cuomo to run away with this, and Russ said he may be too odious, and I'm like, I'm going to have to be proven wrong before I ever bet on an insurgent progressive within the Democratic Party again, because as the Democratic primary voters have proven time and again, there's no such thing as too odious. If Hillary Clinton is too odious for them, what, Andrew? Well, if she wasn't too odious for them, Andrew Cuomo is. If Joe Biden wasn't too odious for them, Andrew Cuomo is. Maybe this combined with the rout in 2024 and the scars from that give him enough of an opportunity. Also, Cuomo did not look like Biden up on the stage, but he did look old. He looked old, and that
he didn't look like a winner. He did not look like a winner.
And that in this context could be important because what happened less than a year ago, the old guy stuck around too long and it burned the Democrats. That memory is fresh in voters' mind. That might be eating at people. So he has a better chance than I expected of winning this primary. I suspect, just as when India Walton beat Byron Brown in the Buffalo primary, and I guess it was 2021, he did not fold and go away and endorse her. He ran as an independent because he had a lot of money and a lot of name ID, and he figured he could win a three-way race. Same thing can happen here. Don't forget, Eric Adams is running as an independent, which means there's going to be a Republican in the race, plus Eric Adams, plus a Democrat. So if Cuomo loses this primary, he could run as an independent, and now it's a four-way race, essentially a race to 30 points, basically, which Cuomo may feel like he can win that. He probably could win that. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that if Mamdani wins, Cuomo bows out. I think you could have a four-way race on your hands between two disgraced major party frontrunners, Eric Adams, Andrew Cuomo, plus the Republican, plus Mamdani as the Democrat. And I would have to say, again, I'd have to double down in that example of saying Cuomo's probably the favorite in that four-way race. So it could get very, very interesting. Before we move on to AOC, I just have to comment on the fucking would you go to Israel. So first of all, what kind of question is it? What foreign country would you visit as New York City mayor? They expose themselves so quickly as fishing to ask, would you go to Israel? They act like it's this open-ended question. Hey, just out of curiosity, what foreign country would you visit first as mayor of New York? And then when Mamdani says, I'd stay here, what do they say? At that
Moldova.
Point,
I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, right, exactly. At that point, they tip their hand and they say, well, would you visit Israel? Right? The question about Israel, and he answered, at first he tried to dodge. He said, I think they have a right to exist. He tried to dodge. And then they said, as a Jewish state, and he says, as a state with equal rights. And this is the tell, and I tweeted this out. When you see the hostility to that answer, you see their hostility to equal rights. This is what I mean. They are admitting right there, plainly and openly, that Israel is a racist state. What do you mean equal rights? It's not. No, he doesn't believe it has a right to exist as a Jewish state. He wants equal rights. I thought the Democrats were all about equal rights. I thought this is the woke, anti-racist party of diversity and equity and inclusion and inclusivity and tolerance. All of a sudden, equal rights becomes taboo. They just come out and say they are against equal rights for Arabs. They admit it plainly in that answer. And then they want to lecture you about anti-racism at the other side of their mouth. It's just stunning. It's stunning. When Jimmy Kimmel got photobombed, the guy said, say free Palestine. Oh, no, I can't say that. Well, why can't you advocate for freedom of people? I thought you guys are all about freedom. I thought oppression is bad and freedom is good. Not in this respect. They are just very on the nose about their belief that Israel has the right to exist as an ethno-supremacist state.
Right. Yeah, of course. You know, Kerry said it.
Kerry said it. John Kerry said it.
Israel can be a Jewish state or it can be a democracy.
Right. Can't be both.
And yeah, this is like that exchange, and that's why I emphasize the demographics of New York. That exchange for a mayor's race would only happen in New York City,
right?
Where that is such an issue because it's the Zionist home base within the United States of America.
Yeah, they're going to ask.
That's why this is such an issue.
They're going to ask the candidates in Knoxville, Tennessee, what other country would you visit?
Yeah,
as mayor of Knoxville? Like what?
that. Now, could he beat Cuomo in this primary? It is possible only because Cuomo is such a pig.
Right.
Even the libs are turned off to Cuomo. The establishment, although he's getting more of the union endorsements than Mamdani is, you're not seeing the kind of press coalescing around him the way they normally would. He's so disgusting, even the establishment cannot come out and openly back him.
Right.
So for that reason, because the drones that the liberals are, who really rely on that media signaling for their personalities and opinions, they're not getting any clear direction. For that reason, you could wind up with such an enthusiasm and turnout gap that Mamdani could wind up pulling off an upset. But you're probably right. If you wind up with a four-way race at the end, there's no way.
I think you will. I think Cuomo figures it's already a three-way race.
I'm saying for Mamdani to win it.
Oh, yeah, no, he would struggle mightily in a four-way race. And I think Cuomo figures, I've got the money. I've got the name ID. It's already a three-way race, so why not make it a four-way race?
Sure.
And that point, it's a race to 30 points, basically. And Cuomo probably feels like he has a pretty good shot at that. All right, so then we got AOC, right? And then we move on?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, you don't want to take a break?
Yeah, we'll take a super chat break. All right, why not? All right. Andrew Baez, late to the stream. Congratulations on the 100,000 subs. Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate that.
You.
Milton Crow, thanks for the $5. Larry Fink and Jamie Dimon control trillions of dollars, not to mention King Charles, Putin, the Waltons, etc. Elon is a little fish in a big pond. Thank you, Milton. Ooh, what happens there? There we go. Rich, thanks for the $10. No words seem to be adequate enough to describe the Zionist Charles Manson cult. Are they really human or pods from outer space? Congratulations on 100,000. Thank you, Rich. Thank you for responding to my super chat. Love. Thank you, Yuppies, for sending the super chat. Appreciate that. Javier says, I really have to change my name from Chunky Lover 69 to my real name on the Patreon name display to get the full benefit. Yes, that's a good idea. 50 milligram, thanks for the $2.99. Appreciate that. H Duo, thanks for the $20 super sticker. Appreciate that. Michael Castillo, thanks for the $100. Wow, another $100 donation. Thank you, Michael. We got that sound drop for you. I know we didn't delete yours.
That one we have.
I refuse to be left out. I want to congratulate the two of you for your 100,000 subs. I've been a fanatic of the show since I saw you on Jimmy. Those subs are rookie numbers. Let's get those subs up in the millions. Love the show as always. Free Palestine. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate that very much.
Blasphemy against who the hell are you? Are you Jesus Christ, you loser?
Thank you very much, kind friend. Appreciate that very, very much. It's very kind. Okay. Eric Rousseau, do dissidents 100,000 leveled up from ignore to shadow ban. There you go. Cute. Al Kid, what about Jimmy Dore? We thank Jimmy Dore. It was on our list of acknowledgments, of course. Am I that behind on Rumble Rants?
That was one of the first ones.
I think that was the first. Am I that behind on the Rumble Rants?
I mean, that was up there from the beginning of the show.
From the beginning. Do you think Kurt Weldon and Senator Ron Johnson talk about reinvestigating 9/11 on Tucker is sincere, or is it redirect to blame Iran? Here's what I'll say about the 9/11 as someone who has had my suspicions about that for 23 years now. I always expected that the truth about that would create more of an enlightenment than it ever did. But the lesson coming out of that, it's a similar lesson coming out of COVID too. I feel like a lot of people who are very frustrated by the lack of consciousness around that issue also were frustrated by the lack of consciousness around 9/11. People want to be, as a rule, people want to be comforted and subdued and placated with good stories, not bad stories, right? And that explains the lack of inquiry into 9/11. When it came out that the Saudis were involved to a much greater extent than the Bush administration originally let on, that is tantamount to it being an inside job. You're an accessory after the fact to a crime if you cover for who committed the crime. So if the Bushes covered for the Saudis, then they would be chargeable in the commission of that crime, and no one gave a shit. No one gave a shit because on a whole, people want to feel like their country is good, that their government is good, and that their government cares about them, and that there are problems and that there are issues to be worked through. But that is the project of being an American, is to work through these issues. That's the blue pill world that most people just want to live in. And it's very easy to frustrate yourself thinking, how can people not wake up? The answer is because most people don't want to, unfortunately. So that's my answer on that. But it's a good question. Thank you, Tommy. Congratulations.
You black pill motherfucker, man.
Congratulations.
You brought me down. I was like on a cloud today.
Yeah.
Brought me right back down, man.
Well, I learned that the hard way. And I've seen a lot of people learn that the hard way throughout the pandemic and in the aftermath of the pandemic. And I'm looking at these people and I'm saying, I went through what you went through about 9/11, and I think that's the process. That's the process. Thanks. Congrats on 100K, boys. I'd make it big too if it weren't for my bum knee. Thank you, Noah Goo. Appreciate that. Ham Hawk, happy 100K, gents. Trump didn't ban Californians from U.S. entry, huh? Well, give him time. Haha. Good one. Good one. Thank you for that. All right, let's move on.
All right, let me come back. I was loading in videos. Okay, so just a reminder, who AOC is, because this was breaking right before the show. She endorsed Mamdani, but just a little earlier this week, she made a different kind of news, at least in our circles.
I would say that the United States, our responsibility is to the stability and the security of the region. That means being able to support, yes, Israel in its defensive capacities, right? In its ability, in that context.
That is a hell of a thing to say on June whatever 2025.
Yep. So don't forget who she is, folks.
Yeah.
I know you don't need to be told that, but just a reminder. All right, so AOC endorses Zohran Mamdani as top choice for mayor. She did this in an exclusive interview with the New York Times. Assemblymember Mamdani has demonstrated a real ability on the ground to put together a coalition of working class New Yorkers who are likely to end up being embittered and turn against politics altogether, as many of those who backed Bernie Sanders did. That's my editorial interjection.
Right.
Working class New Yorkers that is strongest to lead the pack, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez said. In the final stretch of the race, we need to get very real about that. Time is of the essence. With just weeks left before the June 24th Democratic primary, Mr. Cuomo has maintained a steady polling lead, stirring memories of 2021 when progressives did not coalesce and lost the mayoralty to a moderate. In elevating the assemblyman, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, 35, chose the candidate closest to her own mold. Mr. Mamdani, 33, is a leftist representing Queens, a millennial, and a person of color who entered the race as a long shot only to jump to second place by igniting grassroots support with memorable policy proposals and viral videos. His platform echoes the Congresswoman's and has inspired pushback from more moderate Democrats. He wants to make the city buses free, freeze rent increases on rent-stabilized apartments, and open city-run grocery stores, all funded by a $10 billion tax hike on businesses and the super rich. He has also been a sharp critic of Israel. But Ms. Ocasio-Cortez stressed that to defeat Mr. Cuomo, a moderate who she said belongs to the hedge funds and other wealthy interests funding his campaign, the left would have to build a bigger tent and urgently begin working more collaboratively. To that end, the Congresswoman said she would rank Adrienne Adams second, citing her record as city council speaker and Ms. Adams's genuine inroads and connections in working class Black and brown communities like the ones Ms. Ocasio-Cortez represents in the Bronx and Queens. See, now that is the AOC shuffle. You notice how she can't mention a single policy thing that she represents? So, Adrienne Adams, we covered this in the previous segment. She's a corporate lawyer who, in the course of the debate, bent the knee and said her first foreign trip would be to the Holy Land. I'm assuming she doesn't mean Jordan when she says that, or Saudi Arabia. She means Israel. And she also identified Hakeem Jeffries as the country's most effective Democrat. So never forget who she is. She plans to rank Brad Lander, the city comptroller, third, followed by Scott Stringer, a former comptroller, and Zelnor Myrie, a state senator from Brooklyn. Several of the candidates hold positions to the congresswoman's right. His 2021 mayoral endorsement, almost exactly 4 years ago, helped give Maya D. Wiley, another progressive, some late momentum, but she still lost. Since then, strategists on the left have lamented that they failed to follow a cohesive ranked choice strategy, allowing Eric Adams, a moderate, no, he's not a moderate, he was a Republican for 20 years who ran as a Democrat because it's a Democrat town, former police officer, to narrowly claim victory. Mr. Adams is running for re-election as an independent. So this follows Mamdani also picking up the UAW endorsement this week. This is what he said. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a once-in-a-generation leader who has led the fight for working people in Congress. Yeah, sure she has. In 2018, she shocked the world and transformed our politics. On June 24th, with AOC's support and this movement behind us, we will do the same. And of course, I mean, that's the model. If he wins, it's going to be a Joe Crowley thing where nobody saw it coming and he was running against somebody nobody liked, so was able to squeak through. And this is the ranking from the UAW: Zohran Mamdani, Brad Lander, and Jessica Ramos. Brad Lander, having watched him last night, I got to say, I don't know how a guy who reads as such a zero, who just got back from correcting his underwear after a wedgie in the locker room, got that far in politics that he was on that stage. But that guy, that guy could lose to Sliwa if he were the nominee. but that's not going to happen. So he picks up the coveted AOC endorsement. And hey, man, as we said in the previous segment, there could definitely be an upset in the primary, but that would likely go to a 3 or 4-way race that it is hard to imagine Zohran Mamdani winning.
Yeah, and I think it was a question of would AOC get involved? Obviously, the progressives in and around New York City have been upset with her taking as long as she has to have done this. But I always suspected she probably would. She probably would get in late, just like, what did she endorse? Cory Bush, like midnight before the primary vote or something like that? Yeah.
She always waits until it's safe.
Yeah, until it's safe. Right.
Exactly.
And
because Cuomo is so odious, she can't really piss off the establishment because there's no real obvious establishment pick here.
Yeah, I think she saw that Cuomo wasn't exactly tearing it up. Maybe Mamdani had a chance to win, so maybe she figures, hey, if she backs him and he wins, she gets some more cachet, which, I mean, look, that's all typical political gamesmanship. You don't really hold it against any specific person for doing that, but this is the culture that dominates the Democratic Party. It's all gig flow. It's all, can I afford to back it? Do you have enough juice? For me to do this without causing reputational damage, reputational harm, as she's so famous for saying, myself. To me, the more surprising thing are that, and we talked about this with Shama on Tuesday, the amount of shade that the unions are throwing at Andrew Cuomo, to me, is the bigger indicator that he has a shot at an upset, because unions in big cities always just back the highest profile Democrat. They're such star fuckers. They're such clout chasers that they always just kind of, back who's likeliest to win. And in this case, they're saying don't even rank Cuomo. Now, the reason they're saying don't rank is because in a ranked choice voting situation, if you rank Cuomo as second, he could sneak in pretty easily. without getting the most number of first place votes.
Right,
So they're
right.
saying leave him off the ballot entirely. That indicates
And
to me
that was invoked a lot on the debate stage. They call
Yeah.
it DRC.
Right. Right. And so that indicates to me that he does have a chance at an upset. It's hard for me to imagine Cuomo dropping out because it's already going to be a three-way race.
Yeah.
Because you already
and
have
he's
Adams
exactly
as an
the kind of
independent.
douche that wouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. All right. Miguel Cedeno Lozano. I like that name. Why didn't he just answer nope? Yeah, he should have just answered nope. Jay Duncan, M3 Golf. Gaza imagery got me. Was 10-year-old boy whose arms were blown off, crying and screaming. How am I even supposed to live my life now with no arms? He couldn't wipe streaming tears from his eyes. So sad.
Oh, my God.
Just
Oh, my
absolutely, absolutely atrocious. Your intro to the Vanguard came after they'd already revealed themselves as left-branded gatekeepers of narrative conformity, it seems. Before that, Dora and others and Simply Me thought they fooled us early on. Yeah, they kind of switched ecosystems there, as I understand.
Yeah.
For over the past decade, I've joked that I wanted my Halloween costume to be me with a gas can, rags, and flicking a lighter. I don't think I'll ever get to do it now. Probably not. Probably not. That might alert the authorities, stoop sign. They might not see the art in that. Again, Russell, my experience, God personally speaks to us, but we rarely hear. If you get a premonition of something you can't know, it's God speaking to verify, is that you, God? God will reveal it is I. Thank you, Roberto. We had a meeting in the chat.
That's
and we'd
heavy,
like to
man.
bring your attention to the pronunciation of Jenna Tillis. There's no I. Jenna Tills. Oh, Jenna Tills. It wasn't her that egged me on to send this. Congrats on 100K. Thank you. Furrow screen. Jenna Tills, not Jenna Tillis. Okay, gotcha. Interesting. Okay, being black in America, a Keaton White story, says Noah Coop. Appreciate that. Elon's self-induced MK Ultra. He's a sleeper cell. Operation self-destructive. Thank you.
Black
Eric
like
Russo.
me.
Yes, black like me.
The return.
Congrats on 100K. I only need 99K to catch up over my Rumble podcast Beyond the Pale. By the way, it just looks like Jimmy's realized the Butler thing was Ketchup Gate. Oh, did he cover that last night? I'll have to take a look. I missed it last night. Adversity Sings. Thanks for the $20. Politics Speak, a.k.a. Bullshit. Thank you for the donation. Appreciate that. AutoPen 2028, says Eric Russo. Appreciate that.
Couldn't be
very
any
much.
worse.
Nope, could not be any worse. That is true. Elon is having a Marvel superhero fantasy high as fuck in the White House. Thank you. Ron Johnson is that sleazy car salesman that tries to convince you you're getting a great deal on that used Buick. Congrats on 100K. Guys, where's the plaque going to go? Yeah, I don't know. They'll send us a plaque. Russell, you can
Did they send us a plaque?
Well, they're going to probably get in touch with us now. Email us about where to send our plaque. Be nice if they email us about the monetization policy changes that they just implemented in the dead of night. That would have been a nice email.
That
to
would
get.
have been nice.
Yeah, that would have been nice if
I'll put it next to the Zulu coconut.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Okay. All right, we will move right on along here. All right, folks. So this has been a long-standing issue in Gaza, why Israel is so determined to keep the world's media out of Gaza. But in light of the blockade, more and more media sources have been asking this question, hey, why aren't we allowed in? So this is a piece in Haaretz dated May 21st of this year. Since Hamas's attack on October 7th and the start of the war, Israel has not permitted foreign journalists to enter Gaza, except through the one option available to Israeli journalists, spending a few hours in Gaza embedded with the Israeli army. Foreign journalists and bureaus have coped by working with local Palestinian journalists and stringers, freelance reporters, or those who were already in Gaza to gather information, footage, and stories, and through remote reporting. Even permission to enter with the IDF has been granted in limited, arbitrary, and non-transparent ways, say foreign correspondents in Israel. Being shut out is like having the carpet ripped out from under a story. It creates a serious obstacle to first-hand reporting and longer-term investigations, especially for smaller outlets or freelance journalists who don't have the resources to hire local staff in Gaza. A correspondent or bureau chief bears ultimate responsibility for their stories, but they can't go there as per CNN's tagline. That makes it hard to navigate competing claims and counterclaims in a war with an avalanche of both. So again, just to call focus to this, permission to enter with the IDF has been granted in limited, arbitrary, and non-transparent ways. What they're talking about are guys like Douglas Murray, who brag about how they've been the guy. Yeah, you are escorted around by the IDF on a propaganda tour. They're actually not letting objective journalists from foreign countries in on their own. Now, again, this has been an existing dynamic since October 8th. I'm not sure why this is getting the kind of momentum that it's getting now. I think the blockade broke a lot of people. I think it woke a lot of people up to realities that they were blind to previously. Piers Morgan is certainly an example of that. So here is Piers Morgan asking Natasha, Israeli spokeswoman, about why journalists are not being allowed into Gaza. Now, she posts this as an example of him, I guess, revealing himself to be rude. This is Piers Morgan, like, at his best, making her look like an absolute lying fraud. So let's take a look at this.
Told I'm lacking logic here. Is there anything logical about...
Nope, sorry, that is the wrong video. Hold on. Got it right here.
Israel has decided no journalists from outside can go in.
Sorry. Now we got it. Okay.
We're batting 1,000 today between the two of us.
Yeah. Here we go.
Israel has decided no journalists from outside can go in.
For 3 reasons.
And make that assessment themselves.
Yes.
What right does Israel have to do that?
For 3 reasons. Will you allow me to finish?
Well, there are no reasons.
Well, you've
It's
just
none
asked
of your business whether the journalists view their safety as being at risk.
I'm sorry, you haven't heard the reasons yet. The first, of course, is the safety of the journalists, and I appreciate you don't accept that. The second...
I think it's a load of nonsense.
The second is the
The
safety...
idea you're doing is that some quaint concern for the safety of journalists is bullshit.
That was reason number one. Reason number two is the ability.
These better get better.
Is the ability of IDF soldiers to be able to conduct this war against Hamas without.
Without the journalists getting in the way.
No, without.
They've actually, by the way, they've killed more journalists in Palestinian journalists than in any war
Hamas
in
members
modern
wearing
history.
press vests are not journalists. And reason number three.
So none of them are journalists.
And reason number three.
So just to be clear, none of the Palestinian journalists who've been killed are actually
I
journalists.
said Hamas members.
Oh, they're all Hamas
Palestinian
members.
Islamic, those that are. And
I think Piers is starting to catch on to what abject liars these people are. I bet he would redo a lot of the interviews that he did over the past year and a half now, knowing what he's learned about not only the experience of interviewing this woman, but the backlash, which we'll get into in the next segment.
Yeah, this is almost like he's having a Howard Beale kind of meltdown at this point in his career.
Right.
I just ran out of bullshit.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Every single dead Palestinian journalist is a member of Hamas. Is that your position?
No, listen, I appreciate Piers.
That is also bullshit.
But misrepresenting every
So that's
word
2 out of
is
2. What's the
okay.
third reason?
Our mutual friend Douglas Murray was embedded with the IDF in Lebanon.
You said the words yourself. I love Douglas, but he was embedded with the IDF.
Right.
He's unbelievably
But
pro-Israel.
let me finish.
So of course
Will
he
you
was
allow
going
me
to
to
write
finish?
what
No.
he witnessed while embedded with the IDF.
No, let me finish what his experiences there were. The difference
I
is
read
that
it. You don't have to tell me.
There is something I think that you won't have heard. The IDF are able to allow journalists into Lebanon. He wasn't the only one. There were many other
There
international
have been a
journalists with him.
tiny... No.
Those other
bullshit.
international journalists with him
Bullshit.
were very clear.
There
that
have been a tiny
beg your
handful of journalists led in by the IDF in tightly controlled environments
And you
to
know-
witness what the IDF were prepared to let them see.
And do you know what those
And actually, what it
journalists
needs
said?
this war to stop the bullshit, which is out of control, by the way, in this last 3 minutes, is to let international journalists go in and do their jobs. And they will worry with their networks or organizations about their safety, but they should be allowed to do their jobs. And there's only one reason why the Israeli government doesn't want international journalists crawling all over Gaza. It's because they do not want them reporting
Piers,
what they will find.
reason number
which, by the
three.
way, will include the bodies of thousands of children who you, on the Israeli side, are not counting as you count the terrorists you kill, but who journalists would.
Reason number three is that those journalists that were in Lebanon said that they had to be very careful about what they reported because of what Hezbollah would do to their colleagues in Beirut. The fact that international journalists have sunk to this level, that they would allow their reportage to be controlled by terrorist organizations, Iranian proxies, Hamas and Hezbollah, Hezbollah included, is despicable.
It's amazing you would say that, given the fact that the only way journalists can have access to Gaza is with an IDF escort, which means Israel is controlling what the journalists write. That is essentially what that means.
Yeah,
That is
I
the
mean,
real
yeah, their whole default is, this hyperventilating language of personal offense.
Right.
Despicable,
Exactly,
horrible,
yeah.
disgraceful.
Right.
That's all they have.
Yep.
issue here that has driven
Actually,
the
it's not. The
international
real
community.
issue
Of course
is
it is.
it
This
Israel-
is terrorist organizations
The real-
propaganda
actually,
that
it's
you
not.
have
Let me
eaten
bring
up.
David- let me
and
bring
the fact
David.
that you will not allow me to answer a single question
You know what?
here
You've made
will
all
be
your
perfectly
points, and they
evident to your
all, I'm
viewers.
afraid,
I
Natasha,
haven't. I certainly
turned out
haven't
to be
made all my
bullshit.
points.
So let me bring in David.
All turned out to be bullshit. Yeah, he was definitely patience wearing thin there. So obviously what he says there is true about Israel not wanting journalists going in there because they are afraid of what these journalists will find, not only the just abhorrent state of affairs there as it pertains to humanitarian conditions, not just in terms of violence and injuries and deaths and bodies, but in terms of famine and starvation and just the day-to-day horrors of life there will be covered in a way that Israel does not want covered. But I do have to say, I would quibble with the idea that Israel has no concern for the safety of the journalists. They don't have a quaint concern for the safety of the journalists. In other words, they're not concerned for the safety of the journalists because they care about the journalists. But I do think part of why they are not letting journalists in is because they know they are waging a campaign of indiscriminate mass murder. And it's one thing for them to kill 200 Palestinian journalists. Israel knows they cannot afford to have BBC reporters and CNN reporters and Washington Post reporters walking around Gaza being killed. Because if Israel were to kill white reporters, quite frankly, from Western outlets, that would create a massive problem for them.
World
and they don't
Central
trust themselves.
Kitchen all over again.
Exactly. And they don't trust themselves not to do it. Why? Because they're bombing indiscriminately. And they know that if they let journalists in, they are going to inevitably kill a great number of them. And that's going to be very bad for them. So they do have a concern for their safety in that respect. It is because they are waging a genocidal campaign that they do not trust themselves not to kill journalists, quite frankly.
Right.
And that's a big reason why they won't let them in as well.
It's part of it. It is also what Piers pointed out. They do not. The last thing they want is for the world to see on CNN what they're doing there, because early on they did, and it didn't look good. We were very surprised that CNN was doing some of the reports they were doing from the West Bank and Gaza early in the war. They shut that down quick.
Yes, I believe CNN was nominated for an Emmy Award. It was the same woman who did the fake Syria prison story, oddly enough. But one of the stories that was not fake that she did was at that Gaza field hospital. And that got an Emmy nomination because it was an amazing report. Now, imagine doing that report now with conditions what they are now.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that was a few months in.
That was a few months in where you still had some semblance of an infrastructure. You still had passable roads. You still had power. In certain places. Now, forget about it. Now, the findings of those reports would be extraordinarily damning. And the work is so dangerous now. I'm telling you, Israel does not trust itself not to kill anybody because they're just dropping bombs left and right.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. And so that's why they want them out. And that's why you can come in with an IDF escort, because as long as you're close to the military, you're not going to get hit. Right. But
Well,
if you
because they're
go in
radioing in.
yeah, they're radioing in their location, their coordinates. They know they're not going to get struck. But if you're just walking around on your own as a freelancer, that's extremely dangerous. And that is a big part of why they're being kept out. Okay, so we will move on. So let me set this up one more time here. There we go. I got this. Okay. All right, folks. So Piers Morgan just interviewed Israeli spokeswoman Natasha Hausdorfer, Israeli lawyer, rather, alongside Dave Smith. And Dave makes a decent point here about 15 minutes into the debate that, Piers Morgan, not exactly a friend of the pro-Palestine movement, that actually people on both sides of this conflict now are frustrated with him. And that's kind of important to keep in mind when we get into the just absolute unhinged meltdown that Israel supporters hurled Piers' way after this interview.
Told I'm lacking logic here. Is there anything logical about what we're hearing about how they apparently know the exact ratio of terrorists they're killing to civilians, but they don't know how many civilians they're killing? How do you know the ratio?
Piers, it's just too ridiculous. And as you know, Piers, and look, I know that you've been, I think, very, as you said before, I don't want to put you on either side of this debate, because I think actually people who are hardcore on either side of this debate probably see you as someone on the other side.
Yeah, they all hate me. The extremists all hate me. That's fine.
Not all. I didn't mean to say they all hate you. A lot of us like you.
They actually do. The ones who are to the extremities on both sides, they all hate me, so that's fine.
Okay, so we could obviously litigate what constitutes extremists on both sides, but the point remains, yeah, he's not a friend of the pro-Palestine movement. We called him one of the hacks of 2024. He won a Do Dissident Hack of the Year award for his credulous interviews with Israeli spokespeople and his, frankly, chicken shit questioning of pro-Palestine people. This was a big turning point, though. This was just a few weeks ago when he admitted to Mehdi that he now accepts his framing of the Israeli campaign as genocidal in nature.
I've talked about this war in Gaza for ever since it started, this phase of the 75-year conflict. And I have resisted going as far as you have done in your criticism of the Israeli government. I resist no more. I think we've reached common ground about what we view is happening and has been happening through this period of this blockade, which frankly is just starvation of the people there, including so many innocent young women and children. And I think that the incessant bombing and killing, and we don't know how many civilians have been killed, but it is on a daily basis. It looks like hundreds of people every day, with no apparent attempt, it seems to me, to have any real plan for how this ends or what happens when it ends, other than if you look at what Smotrich has been saying, probably the most right-wing member of a very right-wing government, he is talking in a genocidal language about kicking all the Palestinians out.
So, yeah, that was really a major turning point. And now, obviously, this latest interview with the lawyer went viral. Dave Smith, one of the most high-profile, outspoken people on this issue, especially on X. And so the Zionists were off to the races after this. So here they go. So look at this unbelievable meltdown that they have here. Dr. Eli David, Piers Morgan claims to care about Palestinian victims. So why hasn't he shown the same concern for victims in Nigeria, Congo, Yemen, Syria, Iraq, or Afghanistan? Because it's not about compassion for Palestinians. It's about hatred for Jews. Oh, yeah.
They love that line. They love that line.
Yeah. So this is an Israeli minister, Amichai Shakil, says, I've been following Piers Morgan's interviews since the beginning of the war. From the outset, it was clear that, like most Western media, his basic inclination was pro-Palestinian.
Oh, yeah.
Really? Is that the inclination you got?
His show was like a reboot of Memento.
Yeah.
Every show, he seemed to have forgotten everything he learned the show before.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. To the benefit of Israel. To the benefit
of Israel, very much so.
Yeah. But he appeared to maintain a relatively fair and balanced line. Since then, however, I've witnessed a sharp and troubling descent into overt anti-Semitism. Week after week, Piers brings on every Israel hater he can find. Conspiracy theorists, entertainers moonlighting as geopolitical analysts, so long as they're hostile to Israel. So Piers actually replied to this. What a preposterous post. What you really mean is that I now am directly criticizing the government you serve in for actions branded war crimes by former Israeli prime ministers and condemned by most of your allies. Then suddenly I must be an anti-Semite who hates Israel. Pathetic. So Mish replies, not suddenly, you've been an anti-Semite for a long time. He says, that's a disgusting lie. Our friend Blakely interjects here. Are you starting to get it yet? It doesn't matter what you do or say. They will call you an anti-Semite for even acknowledging, I don't think she meant for even acknowledging the Palestinians as human. Yes, ding, ding, ding. That's exactly right. Not only does it not matter what your rationale to them is in the current moment, it does not matter how much water you have carried for Israel in the past. You see people who go from, basically towing the party line on this to now in the face of this blockade, which was a breaking point for so many, come out and say this is enough. And you got Shmuley come out, Jew hater, forget it. It doesn't matter. If you don't back them 100% every time, they lump you in. You are Linda Sarsour. Right? Piers Morgan, they would lump him in with her. It does not matter. They do not tolerate any dissent whatsoever. Okay, so this guy here, Maccabee Lev Ari, he escalates. Piers Morgan, blood libels. Time for a Piers Morgan takedown now that he is a danger to Jews. So Piers Morgan says, this sounds like a threat to me. And so once
I used
happened,
one of those schmooly dildos on my girlfriend. She's got the worst UTI she ever had in her life.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess once that came across the wire, he decided, you know what? I can't do this. I'm just going to have to start blocking people, which, this guy says here, coward. Blocking people won't stop them from calling you out, you pretentious, gaslighting bullshit, Piers Morgan. Now, here's what I will say to this. If you are a guy like Piers Morgan and you have millions of followers and you're constantly getting tagged in shit, you really have no choice but to block the trolls because they'll make the app unusable. Right. Like you'll get hundreds of thousands of mentions and you won't be able to keep track of what you're doing because you have all these people constantly tagging you. So, yeah, he has no choice but to start blocking, and block he does. Coward, says Jay Engelmeyer, blocks him. Ridvan Idemir, again, these are like Star Wars bar names. Piers is blocking everyone who calls him out right now. Tell him he is a dishonest grifter and supporter of Islamic terrorism. Wow. Blocks him. Vivid, one of the most high-profile Zionist accounts on X. Badge of honor, responding to the fact that Piers Morgan blocked him. Awesome Jew says if you haven't been blocked by Piers Morgan yet, you're doing something wrong.
Is that Yohei Sponder?
Yeah,
that was
right.
the
Yeah,
name
we'll
of his
see.
store. No, I'm serious.
What,
I'm serious.
The account?
I think it might be.
Oh, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. If it is, that's an anonymous handle. The Misfit Patriot says, this is insane. Type in Piers blocked into your search bar and enjoy the absolute fucking irony of a guy who calls his own show uncensored having a fucking meltdown. Okay. He's not censoring you by blocking you from his personal account. Censoring would be reporting you to Twitter and having you thrown off. If he's got tens of thousands of lunatics trolling him constantly, then he can't use the app unless he blocks you because he'll get notified of every time you troll him in a post. So it's not censorship. It's just making the experience usable for him. But he did have to block quite a few people. So there is a video of a screen scroll of all of these Israel backers getting blocked by Piers Morgan and then bragging about it as if it's some major own or some major badge of honor, which the Misfit Patriot was glad to post. Now, Misfit Patriot, pro-Israel MAGA handle. I'm not saying this guy is a paid operator, like a Brooklyn Dad Defiant type. I suspect he probably is, since I suspect he doesn't really have the sort of pro-Israel conviction that he tweets about so often. If he is a paid op, and I'm not saying he is, I'm saying I have my suspicions, which I am perfectly entitled to. I'm not making a claim about you. Whoever's paying this guy is overpaying because he's only got 60,000 followers. So he's clearly not very good at it, because for you to troll like this on a platform as friendly to trolls like this as X is and only have 60,000, that means you're really lagging. You got to step up your game there, bud. But Piers Morgan says that's what happens when you know you're wrong, in response to Jonas Juntanen talking about being blocked by Piers Morgan and warning the Misfit Patriot that he might be next. He says that happens when you know you're wrong. Couldn't give a fuck if Piers Morgan blocks me or never invites me back on his show. In fact, if he did invite me back, he should expect me to call him out to his face. To which Piers replies, who are you? He didn't remember him. Didn't remember that he had him on the show. Misfit Patriot says, hi, Piers. I was on your show 2 months ago. Piers replies, "That's hilarious. You're the first ever Piers Uncensored guest who made such a tiny impression. I can't even remember you being on. Anyway, you're banned now." Go ahead.
Yeah, it's not, you don't necessarily block people because you're wrong. You might block people because you don't have time to waste on their nonsense, and
Right.
they're not worth engaging with.
Right. They're not worth engaging with. Yeah. Those are the people who I tended to like unfriend on Facebook. The people who are just, they're not worth engaging with.
They're
It's
not
too much
worth
trouble.
it. Exactly. We when we first started, being civil libertarians, we tried to apply a everyone can say anything standard, and that went wrong real fast because the psychos will take advantage of your principles to try to dominate the platform.
Right. Of course. Of course. So Dave Smith then chimes back in. Of course, he was in the video that set all this off. "It's fascinating to watch what's happening with Piers Morgan right now because he has built one of the biggest platforms in the new media world, but it's a cycle that I've witnessed countless times. Typically, someone who has spent their entire life being generally pro-Israel, seeing them as the good guys in their conflicts, will have a moral issue with something Israel does. They just go too far. In this case, it was the 3-month complete blockade of food and aid to a civilian population that has already gone through over 20 months of brutal siege and bombardment. That person, in this case, Piers, is then viciously smeared for the crime of speaking out against something unconscionably wrong. On top of that, you are subjected to the most absurd propaganda denying that the atrocities even happened, all while people at the highest levels of the Israeli government brag about it. The only response is to insult your character and your intelligence, and yes, character big time. They call him an anti-Semite.
Yeah,
of course, this has the effect of pushing people to oppose Israel even more as you recognize how comfortable the pro-Israel crowd is lying and smearing people. Yes, and that's why I wanted to cover this, because when you got a guy like Piers Morgan, who spent so long making so many excuses for the Israelis' conduct, finally hit a breaking point and tell Mehdi Hassan, okay, you know what? We have a disagreement no more on this issue. Still, broadly speaking, he is not a critique of the Zionist project. He's a critique of the conduct of the few bad apples who he sees as committing horrible crimes. But still, what this forces, forces, well, hopefully, keep our fingers crossed for that, right? But what it does is it forces everyone to realize just what bad faith actors the Israel supporters are. Because a guy who has really gone out of his way to give Israel the benefit of every doubt, when he reaches his limit, they come right in and accuse him of anti-Semitism, which exposes their game. It exposes how bad faith they are, and it's going to turn more. Oh, wait a minute. Because surely, throughout this past year and a half, a lot of people who supported Israel probably liked a lot of what Piers Morgan had to say. And a lot of those people might be thinking, well, wait a minute. You know, maybe this guy's had a change of heart. Maybe I agree with that. Maybe I don't, depending on the person. Certainly not an anti-Sem. I mean, it's certainly absurd to say that this latest criticism of Israel is motivated by anti-Semitism when he was carrying water for them for a year and a half. It exposes these Zionists and their Zionist accounts and the influencers for being completely bad faith. And yes, that hurts their cause. It turns more people against them when they realize how bad faith they are.
Well, there's why Max Blumenthal calls them Ziontologists, because this is very much, if you've ever researched the Church of Scientology,
100%.
This is their doctrine of fair game. If you're against them, all things are permitted. You can do anything to them to shut down their speech. Whatever you have to do, blackmail them, intimidate them, smear them, harass them, blackmail them, whatever you have to do. That's exactly how they conduct themselves. You say, and just like with Scientologists, there's no levels. If you say anything against the Church of Scientology, the doctrine of fair game comes into play.
Exactly. And this is how this is how the wokesters operate. This is how the wokesters lost their support. This is how the Democrats went from being a dominant party in 2009 to being on the verge of extinction right now. Is they took the approach that to question anything they said made you an enemy of humanity. And that left a lot of normal people saying, well, wait a minute. I'm not transphobic. I don't dislike trans people. I just think it's unfair for biological men to be competing against biological women in sports.
And they still won't let that go.
Right. That doesn't make me a hateful person. That just strikes me as a violation of basic fairness. No, they went after these people very viciously, right? And that revealed them to be bad faith and to turn the public against them in a big way. That's what's happening right now.
Well,
you got a guy like Piers Morgan showing some dissent after being essentially, I won't say a good soldier, but he was definitely not different from many in Western media for giving the Israeli government the benefit of doubt.
Genocide's a little extreme.
Exactly. He comes out and says that, and you immediately jump down his throat. That turns people off. People don't like that. Normal people don't like that. Normal people don't like cancel culture. That's what they're doing. This is woke mob tactics on behalf of a genocidal state. It's going to implode their popularity.
Yeah, you want to see this whole phenomena that this whole segment has been about in a 60-second clip? Go look up that viral video of the soccer player who was just giving an interview about soccer. I don't remember where he was from. I think some Scandinavian country. And an Israeli comes in on the side, none of his fucking business.
Right.
Don't say anything about Israel. The guy's like, I'm not talking politics. I'm talking sports. He keeps going. But by the end of it, there's 60 seconds. You can see the change. Free Palestine.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's it. That's what this is.
Yep. Exactly. Well said. All right. Janice Anderson, Sabby Sabs mentioned they don't automatically send the plaque. You have to fill out a form and have it sent. Congratulations on the 100K. All right. Well, I'm not doing that. Hey, Russell can do it if he wants. I don't need the plaque.
Yeah, I'll do it. I want the plaque.
Right.
Look at all these tchotchkes.
You can have the plaque. All right. That's what I have room for.
I'll put the plaque up there.
Yeah. Where am I going to keep a plaque? It's going to fall on my head. Virtual. So thanks for the $5. No Jew jokes around Dave Portgoy. He fears cancellation. Yeah, I saw that. Hillary Hinton, congrats on the 100K dirtbags to celebrate. Let's get some 2020 Mad Dog, shoplift them all, then drive around the neighborhood knocking over lawn ornaments. Sorry about the dirtbags thing. Thank you. Damon Wolf, congrats on the milestone. Fellas, couldn't happen to a nicer pair of obnoxious truth tellers. Love you guys. Free Palestine. Thank you, Damon. Appreciate that. Global workers blockade of Israel sanctions by the people. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. The company I work for, says Damon Wolf, has contracts with the 3 biggest weapons makers and yet puts a mini lecture on the bulletin board about not talking politics at work while showing weapons in promo materials. Yeah, that is ballsy. Wow. Do you guys like Jen Perlman? Is she a friend of the show? A friend of me? No, I consider Jen
yeah, she's a friend of ours.
She's a friend of the show. They invited me to co-host their show on Monday. I had to turn them down because I've been so incredibly busy, and now I'm actually hosting the Jimmy Dore show.
Doing the Jimmy show.
Yes, so we're actually hosting. Yeah, but yeah, no. Those guys are pals for sure. I Am the Owl. This by Doc Waters is exactly the way, and why Free Palestine, anti-genocide, and anti-war are necessary pillars for the global labor movement. This is what you guys have always advocated. Yes, absolutely. Yes, 100%. Thank you. That's why we covered that. Went to your locals, didn't get laid, not going back again. Oh, sorry about that, Kim and G. Better luck next time. Jack Page, thanks for the $5.
You'd be the first.
You would be the first. How the actual fuck is NYC dumb enough to vote for Cuomo? I can't even believe he's in the lead. Those are primary voters for you. That's why I'm saying, man.
That is New York, man. That is why. Look, New Yorkers. It's kind of a cliche that we have a love-hate relationship with the city. My hate is largely based on that reality at this point. Yeah.
Right. Yep. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break to pause for a word from one of our dissident sponsors. So here on Do Dissidents, we're all about building a vibrant community of engaged listeners who connect with authentic voices and independent thought. And speaking of authentic voices, we do want to spotlight John Koa, a compelling solo artist who's not just a longtime listener, but a true part of this community. John's 34-song collection, A to Z, is getting its finishing touches. This is a massive undertaking, and a release strategy for this many songs is currently being devised, so its arrival is imminent. The project is a unique blend of originals and powerful covers that John has honed over the years on stage in LA, Tokyo, and other cities, performing live, usually with 2 or 3 other musicians. He plays and mixes the album himself, creating a distinct retro-modern sound that's entirely his own. You'll hear compelling interpretations of tracks like Jackson Brown's Doctor My Eyes, Ben Harper's Excuse Me Mister, and the Stones' Give Me Shelter, songs whose lyrics, it turns out, feel remarkably timely. While A to Z prepares for its launch, make sure you've caught John Coa's 2 latest studio singles on all your favorite streaming platforms, including Spotify and Apple, as well as X and YouTube. You can find them on YouTube at youtube.com/at John Coa, JOHNKOAH, or you can access his website with links to all of his social media channels at dudissidents.com/Coa. That's dudissidents.com/Coa. So please head over there, subscribe to him on YouTube, and download some tracks on Spotify and Apple in anticipation of his forthcoming 34-song album. Thank you very much for your support, everybody. Okay, we got one more segment on the day. And then it is a weekend for us.
Blow that whistle.
My kids are graduating kindergarten tomorrow.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Yeah. Important ceremony.
It's an important milestone.
Yes, important milestone, yes.
All right, so Karine Jean-Pierre, which some people believe was the worst press secretary in the history of the White House. I think that's unfair given what she had to work with there. But hey, self-proclaimed queer historical figure Karine Jean-Pierre has now left the Democratic Party and is selling a book that no one will buy. Well, that's pessimistic. Let's see what she said about why she's leaving the party and what's in her book.
Hi, I'm Karine Jean-Pierre, and I am the author of a new book that's coming out this fall called Independent. It's coming out on October 21st, so please do grab it. And the reason I wrote this book, coming out of the White House, serving as White House press secretary was an honor and a privilege. But since I have left, the people that come up to me, strangers that come up to me just across the country as I'm traveling, and sometimes right in my neighborhood, at a grocery store, supermarket, airport, my daughter's school, the number one question they ask me is, Karine, how do we get out of this? How do we protect our democracy? How do we protect vulnerable communities among us? What do we do next?
People often approach me while I'm waiting for the oil change to be done on my car in the in the folding chair at Monroe Muffler.
People approach me while I'm digging through the recycling bins for the deposit.
Yes.
Because we don't have answers here. That's what they ask me. And this is my answer. And what I mean by that is, in an era of misinformation, disinformation, the regressiveness of social policy, what we're seeing currently right now, what I have decided to do, and I really have thought long and hard about this, is to follow my own compass. And that's what I've done. And that's what this book does. And here's the truth. And here's how I will lay it out to you. I think we need to stop thinking in boxes and think outside of our boxes.
Wow.
And not be so partisan.
Oh, wow. Nobody's ever said anything like this before.
Oh, that's amazing.
This is really amazing. So you're a third-way Democrat now,
right?
Saying, basically. You're a Joe Manchin Democrat.
Yep.
And the way that I see moving forward in this space that we're in right now is, if you are willing to stand side by side with me, regardless of your how you identify politically, and as long as you respect the community that I belong to and vulnerable communities that I respect, I will be there with you. I will move forward with you. And that is, I think, so important. So this book, Independent, it's about looking outside of boxes, not just always being in a partisan stance. And how do we move forward together in a compassionate way, in a way that really, truly cares about people? October 21st.
You should have said, as long as you deny the white South African genocide, I will stand shoulder to shoulder with you.
Yeah, no, the ridiculousness of this is kind of mind-blowing. Like the idea that there's a big audience of not bluer than blue Democrats who would be interested in what she has to say about anything. This makes no sense on its own terms. The only market for a book from her would be a very MSNBC Trump ruining country. That's it. The idea that you're going to reach out, there's a lot of red hats out there going, you know, I didn't like her before, but now that she's an independent, I think I'm going to read that book. Get the audio book at least. Listen to it in the car. Yeah, that's going to happen. So, friend of show, I think I can say, unlikely friend of show, believe it or not, of unlikely podcast friendships. Greg Foreman at the Black Conservative Perspective, who, listen, I don't agree with him politically on pretty much anything, but I've said it before. That man is the hardest working man in podcasts, even more so now that I found out when we interviewed him on Jimmy's show. He does that himself. I assumed he had a crew. So very often when we're putting together a segment, I'll take a look at what he did on it because it will pretty much have every relevant clip and tweet. I really don't know how he does it. But shout out to him because he found this. I assume he didn't make it. He found it. So this is Karine Jean-Pierre in the course of her duties claiming repeatedly there's nothing wrong with Joe Biden.
To continue on even after 2024?
Don, you're asking me this question. Oh my gosh, he's the president of the United States. You know, I can't even keep up with it. We just got back from New Mexico. We just got back from California. That is not a question that we should be even asking.
Jackie, are you here? Where's Jackie? She must not be here.
No, I totally understand. I just explained she was on top of mind.
The book is suggesting the president tells aides he's tired.
But that's in the excerpt, right?
Yeah, and that's why there have been so few public events before 10 a.m.
I mean, that's a ridiculous assumption to make.
President Biden is the oldest president in U.S. history. Why does White House staff treat him like a baby?
No one treats the president of the United States, the commander-in-chief, like a baby.
So there's this book that says
that's ridiculous.
When staff
that's a ridiculous claim.
What's...
I would put the president's stamina, president's wisdom, ability to get this done on behalf of the American people against anyone.
How is President Biden ever going to convince the 3/4 of voters who are worried about his physical and mental health that he is okay, even though in Las Vegas he told a story about recently talking to a French president who died in 1996?
I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole with you, sir. Comments were made in that report about that, obviously about his memory that we don't believe lives in reality. I think you all have called this the cheap fakes video, and that's exactly what they are. They are cheap fakes video. They are done in bad faith, and some of your news organization have been very clear, have stressed that these right-wing critics of the president have a credibility problem. I think there is so much misinformation, disinformation, as we've been talking about. We talked about the video of the president wandering, and it's not true, right? The president wasn't wandering. And so we believe we have to call that out. We've been calling it cheap fakes. That is something that came directly from the media outlets.
Is anyone in the White House hiding information about the president's health or his ability to do the job day to day?
Absolutely not. What we have released has been very comprehensive. It has been. It has been transparent. With age comes wisdom and comes experience. And I think that matters as well. He is as sharp as...
Okay, remember, now we know, and I believe the reporting, Jake Tapper's ethics aside, Biden hadn't met with his cabinet for months at this point. They stopped meeting with him, I think Tapper's reporting said around November 2023. For months, the cabinet had not met with the president, which he had to be aware of.
As ever, as I have known him to be in my engagement and my experience with him. And I know when I walk into the Oval Office or see him on Air Force One, I have to be on top of my game.
Wow. So...
Okay, so thanks again to Greg for finding that. Aaron Rupar. Oh, now the knives come out. Now all of a sudden they can say what they really think of Karine Jean-Pierre. Aaron Rupar. It's sad that Biden stuck with Karine Jean-Pierre for all those years, despite the fact that she was not that great at her job. You know, I seem to remember Tucker Carlson being a sexist, misogynist, homophobe for saying that she was incompetent, right? All the right wingers who said that she was grossly incompetent just hated seeing a queer black woman in that role. But now they're all saying it. Despite the fact that she was not that great at her job, only for her to turn around and write a book about why she left the Democratic Party and is now an independent. See, now they have permission from their masters to say these things about her. Not only that, 7 staffers ran to Politico, most of whom wanted to remain anonymous, to shit talk Karine Jean-Pierre, given all this. Whoops. So, as Biden's press secretary, Jean-Pierre's halting, ineffectual briefings exasperated reporters and routinely offered material for the Republican Party's main account on X. She frustrated colleagues throughout the West Wing for focusing on raising her own profile while leaving the hands-on management of media relations and the White House press shop to other aides. Jean-Pierre's former staffers offered withering criticism of what they see as an opportunistic grift. You know, they're just mad that she thought of it first. Quote, she made a joke about being an independent last year, and now it's a book. All ideas are monetary, even the dumb ones, said one of the former staffers. Caitlin Lagaki, a Democratic strategist who worked in the Commerce Department's communication shop during Biden's term, also took issue with the book's apparent premise. Quote, this is why there's no hope coming from the Democrats, folks. Quote, Kamala Harris and the entire Biden-Harris campaign did heroes work to avoid losing 400 electoral votes and giving Republicans a supermajority in Congress, which is what would have happened if he stayed on the ticket, she said. It's more productive to focus on that and thank Biden for doing the responsible thing by stepping aside than it is to pretend this was an unwarranted act of betrayal.
Oh, yeah, no one should have any criticisms of how that all went down. No,
not at all.
Everybody did their best, and it went just fine because, hey,
what
hey,
a
look,
ball
the
club.
Republicans could have 85 seats in the Senate. Instead, they only got 53.
Yeah, look at the great job we all did. According to one of the former officials and another former official, Jean-Pierre had been hoping for a post-White House job as a co-host on The View, following the template of her predecessor, Jen Psaki, who departed the job after just more than a year for an anchor job at MSNBC. But no such opportunity materialized for Jean-Pierre, a factor 3 of her former colleagues surmised that likely led to the book. That is a sad statement when people consider you less qualified than Whoopi Goldberg to pontificate about politics, man. Yeah. So I think this is probably true, and it really gives you a window into what degenerates these people are. It is all about gig flow.
Oh, yeah.
She thought she would get a chair on The View. She didn't get it, so she decided, well, I guess I'll go the backstabby route. You know, I'll go on with Theo Vaughn, talk about how bad the Democratic Party treated Joe Biden.
Theo Vaughn should have her on. That would be great.
So this is from
looked to me like the guy was shitting his pants. So you kept saying he was fine. What's that?
Well, he was fine. That's the thing. He was fine.
He was fine.
This is from Hotspot. Former Biden press secretary is jumping ship, switching to an independent and cashing in with a tell-all book about the White House. Jean-Pierre already previewed her pivot earlier this year when she slammed Democrats for turning on Biden. And now she's out grifting Jake Tapper with her own career brand memoir. Now she did go out last year and say some pretty amazing things about, shit, that's not in there. All right, read a damn super chat.
All right.
Give me a second.
Furrow Queen says, if I was on that panel for mayor and they asked me my first trip is going to be, I would stump them all and say, I'm off to the Seychelles. Sorry about the Vanguard thing. Love you guys. Vito rocks. Thank you, Furrow Queen. Appreciate that. Siddhartha Vicious, congrats on the subs. You guys won me over from your Vanguard appearance. Thank you, Siddhartha Vicious. We were never on the show. We just made a funny video about it.
We've never been on, yeah.
Well, that does it. Changing my name to Mike Octopus. Thank you.
All right, we're good.
All right, go ahead.
Personally, I think what was the toughest thing to see in the 3 weeks was there was a disconnect for me. What was happening with leadership in the Democratic Party and how it was truly, as my former colleague, communications director Ben LeBolt said, it was a firing squad. And I had never seen anything like it before. I'd never seen a party do that in the way that they did. And it was hurtful and sad to see that happening. A firing squad around a person who I believe was a true patriot, a person who I believe did everything that he can for this country, a person who I believe, as I mentioned before, has done more in one term than most presidents had done in 2 terms, historical things. And I was shocked by what I was seeing.
And Karine, just to clarify, these are other Democrats and Democratic leadership coming out against Biden.
Yep, I had never seen anything like that. That was, if you're asking me, the thing that I saw in those 3 weeks, that was shocking. Shocking. And instead of coming together to really be unified and trying to figure out how do we save our democracy, how do we fight back, that's what I was seeing. And, that's what we decided to do for 3 weeks. And, it was truly, truly unfortunate. And I think it hurt us more than I think folks realized to have done that.
And I know we're coming.
Okay, so I'm just going to say, on the one hand, her job, the job of any press secretary is to be a professional liar. So she's not unique in this. And when you consider what she had to lie about, that the president was half a vegetable, I don't know how much better you could do with that. She is reputed. Many people have the perception she was a terrible press secretary. But I mean, what would someone else have done other than resign and protest because you're not going to be complicit in this cover up? That having been said, she's a real moron. Wow. Really? You're going to run with Joe Biden was fine and how dare they push him out? That's what you're going to run with? And you think now you're going to sell your book by, on the one hand, defending freaking Joe Biden and on the other trying to bait in, I mean, I guess she's assuming suburban Republicans against Trump kind of people are gonna come to you now. I mean, that's not a great plan. That's a really dumb plan. You would have been much better off because, I mean, it seems like she's just a careerist. Doesn't seem like she has any principles. She really has no future outside the MSNBC Kool-Aid drinking libs bubble. Like, what is she thinking?
Well, that's what makes this book so stupid and so unbecoming and so, ethically dubious, is the fact that, when you are the spokesperson for the White House or for the State Department, or for any of these, executive branch organizations, your job is to lie for them. And part of lying for them is knowing what you're allowed to say, but also knowing what you are not allowed to say. So you're privy to a lot of inside information, and you are paid to go out there and lie to create the narrative that they want. That does make it especially unethical to turn around and stab them in the back as if they're a bunch of liars. Okay, but they paid you to bullshit. That would be like Matthew Miller coming out with an expose about Blinken. It's unethical. Because your whole job, they trusted you with that information and paid you to present it the way they want. So now you're going to go out and expose them as if what? As if you didn't take a bunch of money from them to parrot the exact lies that they wanted you to tell? It's especially sleazy, much more so than even what Jake Tapper did, which was pretty
Right.
sleazy. I mean,
Although
that's pretty
I mean,
sleazy in itself. Yeah.
She's taken a weird angle though, because she's not throwing Biden under the bus. It seems she's doubling down and attacking the party, which is the only people who might have hired her going forward. And I think people who are saying nobody's going to buy this book are absolutely right, because you pissed off the MSNBC libs, and Republicans against Trump. They're
Right.
not.
So why are you
she's
calling
too,
the book
She's
independent?
too much
Like,
of a joke.
Yeah, it strikes me as a little bit of a Lindy Lee kind of thing. Like, why are you calling it independent?
Yeah,
You're them
but-
exiting. Like,
Yeah, she got in first though.
Yeah,
She got in on the ground floor of this grift. So Scott Jennings was pretty funny here on CNN talking about this.
Different view. I'd like to congratulate Democrats for ridding yourselves of this untalented mediocrity. I mean, this is the most self-aggrandizing liar that has ever held this job. The White House press secretary is a sacred position, and she stood up there for years and lied through her teeth to the American people.
My friend,
and
she's not the first.
She is the literal worst White House press secretary in my lifetime. And what she did in the last year and a half of the Biden administration, cheat fakes, the entire cover-up around the president's mental faculties, she was in the center of it.
So you think she's doing this to launder herself?
So congratulations for getting rid of this, but Democrats deserve everything they're getting here for putting her in that job in the first place.
So I will say,
Well, now you might say, well, that's Scott Jennings. Stephen Smith had a few words to say about this.
The White House press secretary when you showed up on ABC's The View a couple of months ago. You were talking major stuff then. You were not the White House press secretary. You were an American citizen who was not working in the White House. What the hell you going on the show for then? Bloviating about Joe Biden and how he was alert and he was spry and he was a great commander in chief and he was sharp and all of this stuff. I don't have the clip in front of me because I just saw the story. You're lucky I don't have time to pull it up. But I'm fully aware of the fact that you were not the White House press secretary when you were on The View spewing the same stuff you had spewed when you were the White House press secretary.
And it looks like she's going to keep going in that direction. So Charlie Kirk said, Biden press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre has joined the pile-on of tell-all books about the Biden administration, but she's gone the extra mile by also announcing she's leaving the Democratic Party entirely to become an independent. Her book is subtitled A Look Inside a Broken White House Outside the Party Lines, as though this will trick anybody into forgetting the central role she played in perpetuating the Biden cover-up. Nice try, Karine. I mean, I guess that's why she's going with doubling down. I guess in her stupid way, she's trying to be smart. Like, well, I can't claim that because that indicts me. So I kind of have to triple down on the idea there was nothing wrong with Biden. Otherwise, what am I saying about myself?
Right.
Matt Stoller. Biden's biggest management problem was he never fired anyone, and Exhibit A was the massively incompetent Karine Jean-Pierre. This is where I would, this is in line with my take. Arami Ose Frimpong. There is a meta story about how Bernie hiring Simone Sanders was a disaster, and Biden hiring Karine Jean-Pierre was a disaster. And there is something about Dems getting burned for hiring professional class black women who obviously don't believe in anything. Mind you, this is different from hiring black women who are ideologically engaged and philosophically committed. But this idea that Dems can hire these folks who are clearly mercenaries and then are surprised when they behave like mercenaries just looks like shocking incompetence on the part of those doing the hiring. Yes, exactly. If you remember Bernie Sanders, and he just recently in one of his I don't give a shit moods kind of repeated this. It doesn't matter what your identity is. What do you believe in? But that's exactly why they grab people like Jean-Pierre so they can hide behind them. so they can hide what they're doing behind them. And, you know, it's a great deflection. Anyone attacks them, and that's exactly what they did with her. You're a sexist, you're a racist, you're homophobic. But here you want to see a lib take. Karine Jean-Pierre isn't leaving the Democratic Party over policy. She's leaving because they treated President Biden like shit. If they keep up the Biden bashing, they'll lose even more of us. Those people are out there. Those people who will not give up the ghost on Biden, which apparently she's planning on being one of them, which I guess she almost has to be. She's trying to thread this needle between, well, I blame the party. There was nothing wrong with Biden. Hey, you hate the Democratic Party. I hate the Democratic Party too. So let's move beyond Biden and let's go forward together. Please give me a career. Please give me a career, because they wouldn't give me a job on The View, and I don't know what I'm going to do to maintain the lifestyle to which I've become accustomed. Yeah, man, this is of all the grifts out there in the wake of the Democratic Party implosion, this may go down in history as the most pathetic.
Agreed. Yes, indeed. All right, folks. We're supposed to be done with the show, but we have major news on the Elon Musk, Donald Trump front. Just came in across the wire. Literally just saw this. And so if you didn't think their falling out was real, their falling out is quite real. This is a real tweet from Elon Musk 10 minutes ago. Time to drop the really big bomb. Real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Holy shit.
And he follows it up with, mark this post for the future. The truth will come out. Hold on. Let me see if I can increase the font size so you guys could see a little better. Is that better? Yeah, I just increased the font size so you guys can read it. Yeah. Well, I didn't know if that would change. Time to drop
that's even better.
The really big bomb. Real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, Donald J. Trump. Mark this post for the future. The truth will come out. That has 4.5 million views. Was tweeted 13 minutes ago.
Wow.
Alex Jones says timeline pin drop. Joey Manarino, MAGA Chud. If he's in the Epstein files, why didn't Biden release them? Okay,
because he's in the Epstein files.
Yeah, right, exactly.
He was taking a nap in the corner.
Why'd you work for the guy if you knew this? Says Synth Potato. Hunter Weiss says, bro, did you short Tesla before tweeting today? Christopher Hale says, why did libs of TikTok lie to us, Elon? Swan says, really, you should have proof if you're going to allege it. What is your source, Elon? Wow. Noted. This is history, folks, says Historic Vids. Okay, well, now the era of the...
Oh, yeah, man. I just checked to see if that was true. Tesla is down 16.3%.
Wow.
On this, because now people are like, well, now he's not getting those defense contracts.
Elon Musk didn't kill himself. Wow. That's amazing. Please up your security immediately. Wow.
Wow, man. Wow.
That is incredible that he would...
Okay, well, this goes to what I was saying earlier, man. That's our greatest hope as a nation, that these narcissists are going to turn on each other and these crackpots are going to collapse under the weight of their own incompetence. This is a perfect example.
Well, this is here, Matt Van
What did
Swole.
Cassine say? Go back. What did Cassine say?
He said, up your security immediately.
Oh,
so this
that
is
was
Matt.
Cassine?
This is Matt Van Swole. This is the guy who did a lot of journalism around Western North Carolina, who is just a major Elon stan and major Trump stan, to the point where he consistently denies that Trump is screwing Western North Carolina out of FEMA funds. So this is a guy. This is a perfect example of a guy whose entire career is pumping Elon and Trump simultaneously.
Right. Yeah.
And here he says, what the fuck? Yeah, what the fuck is right, because the era of fence sitting is now over. You now can no longer be both an Elon stan and a Trump stan. What is this going to do for Alex Jones?
He just put down a down payment on his Lambo.
Exactly. Look at Alex Jones. Alex Jones is, all up Elon's ass and all up Trump's ass. Well, the feud is on now, folks. Shots fired.
Try not picking a side. I mean, Alex Jones is going to be really funny to watch now.
The thing about Elon is he gets emotional.
The thing about
But,
Elon is
in the
he's
end,
been
those
given
are
a
two
fake
men who
version
love
of the
each
file,
other.
so he saw Trump's name in there, but Trump's name is not in here. So Elon's doing his best. He's trying to inform us, but he's misinformed in this case. Totally innocent mistake. I still love Elon. I still love Trump. Everybody love Elon, love Trump, love me. Buy the supplements and all that. Yeah, man, how do you fucking keep that going? Wow, that is a candidate. I mean, if that's not a tweet of the year candidate, I don't know what is.
Wow.
That is fucking insane. And the egos on these guys, man, it's amazing. Like,
and Trump, who is no slouch in the vicious attack department, how is he gonna respond to this?
How is he gonna respond to that?
That's why Tesla stock is down like that, because you know him, man. I mean, forget about government contracts; those are gone now. And this actually reinforces the idea Elon is whacked out on drugs, because this is such a self-destructive move. And now I am going to say, I didn't want to go out on a limb on this. The Tesla board is going to end up moving to replace Elon as the CEO.
Okay, so Trump,
I by the end of the year.
So Trump 51 minutes ago, I can't access the Truth Social on the computer. It's weird. You got to like sign in and shit, and I don't have an account. But so on my phone, I have it. So 51 minutes ago, so this was probably a half hour before Elon tweeted out the thing about Epstein. Trump tweets out, Elon was wearing thin. I asked him to leave. I took away his EV mandate that forced everyone to buy electric cars that nobody else wanted, that he knew for months I was going to do. And he just went crazy. Okay, so Trump admitted that they had a falling out. And then 35 minutes later, Elon thought, you know what? I'm just going to say he's in the Epstein files, and that's why they're not out. Oh, God. Yeah. Oh, this is how these people fight, man. This is why I told you they were not going to keep it together. Yeah. They were not going to be able to keep it together.
Confederacy of scumbags.
Yeah, too many egos, too many chefs in the kitchen. Yeah, that is an amazing thing to fucking tweet out.
This is the Ocean Gate sub of administrations.
Yeah, that is an incredible thing to tweet out.
Yeah,
that's Elon Musk.
But that's something Elon would do, man. Yeah, you want to get in bed. You want to get in bed.
Alex Jones, God help us. No. That's good. I should retweet him. Should I retweet that?
Throw that up. Throw that up. I want to see that.
God help us all. Oh, sorry. I thought we were sharing. Sorry about that. Yeah, Alex Jones, God help us all. I should retweet that, right? I'll take a live vote in the chat.
Guys were scaring Alex Jones.
Should I retweet Alex Jones? Should I retweet God help us all? I think that'd be a funny thing to retweet. What do you think, Russell? Should I retweet it?
I
mean, make an executive decision.
Maybe quote tweet it.
Yeah.
Come up with some commentary. Don't just retweet.
All right.
Retweet.
Oh God!
Those guys that do dissonance are into me. They give you a retweet.
They give you a retweet. Thanks, fellas. Yeah.
Thanks, fellas. I need all the help I can get today.
I'm going to send you a month's supply of my new supplement. Yeah. Make your dick hard as a rock. Yeah.
No, look, man, that Elon money is nice. But what did you think would happen with a volatile billionaire? This is a guy whose character is such that he would attack Thai divers for not accepting his stupid submarine idea. That's who you're dealing with, man. He's a fucking lunatic. But I also think he's having a drug-fueled meltdown. Because this is so ridiculously self-destructive.
It's an insane thing to tweet out. That is an insane thing to tweet out.
Your whole company is hanging by a thread.
Right, yeah.
And you just burned your Defense Department contracts, which was the only thing propping it up.
Yeah, man. I mean, that is unbelievable. It's unbelievable that you would retweet that. Or that you would tweet that out.
Right. And that's something Trump can never forgive. He can never do business with Trump.
Obviously, that's gone. Yeah.
No, but I'm saying in terms of his business, the business implications.
But in terms of the business and in terms of his brand, in terms of his followership, like he's already burned the libs. They're not coming back. No matter what you do, they're not coming back. Okay? I mean, he could fund Kamala Harris's 2028 campaign and they'd come back. That's what it would take. So Elon, hey, listen. All right. I know you're probably having a rough time right now.
A little free advice.
Your best bet at this point is just to become a lib. just to say the whole thing was a put on.
Full on. Yeah.
The whole thing was a put on. This was all to expose.
I was a double agent.
This was all.
It was the only way I could get on the inside.
This was all to expose the xenophobia and the transphobia and the racism and the nationalism of the right. You made your point. It was all elaborate performance art, and now you have to dump tens of millions of dollars into Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg 2028. That's the only thing that could save you at this point, is to redeem yourself in their eyes, because you've crossed the point of no return here. I mean, there's no coming back from that. Yeah, you're on the Epstein.
Cross the Rubicon, my friend.
You're in the Epstein files. I mean, that fucks up everything for him. Everything for him, because there were even with this falling out over the bill, because look, they were obviously at odds over the H-1B visa rights, and by at odds, I don't mean him and Trump, I mean him and MAGA, right? They had a back and forth over the visas where he was for them and they were against them, and he said they were racist. Okay, you're still in the tent at that point, because big picture, you're similar enough where people can reconcile that. This you can't. You have a falling out, you get booted out of the administration, and now you say the fucking guy is in the Epstein files. Like, now, forget it.
That's even some people. So, some of the cope is it's a stock scheme, they're manipulating. No, man, because they'd go for if that were the case, they'd go for something that could conceivably be reconciled. Saying Trump is in the Epstein files, there's no, me and Elon had lunch. They can't do that with that.
No,
they can't do that with that.
That is what you call scorched earth. Wow. Yeah, Jesus Christ. Well, that clip's got to come out right when we're done with the show.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. All right. Well, folks, we're going to take the rest of these super chats and call it a day. But wow, talk about news to break.
Mm-hmm.
Last 3 minutes of your Karine Jean-Pierre segment, I'm like, all right, come on, let's go. Nobody cares. Let's go. Hurry up. We got to get to this. All right, come on. You didn't
People
know.
care.
I know. You had no way of knowing. But it was just like I was sitting on that news. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to break this. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Barbara Howard, thanks for the $100. $100 from Barbara Howard.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. Thank you. That's very kind of you. Appreciate that. That is very generous. Thank you all for your generosity today. 100 for 100K. I have so much gratitude for you two dudes. Love from an actually woke boomer who is your greatest fan. Free Palestine. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
Appreciate that so much. Keep up the good work, guys, says Racecar789. Thank you for the $20. Appreciate that. Janice Anderson, maybe they'll bring in BYD now just to harm Tesla. Interesting. Yeah, that would be an interesting move.
That would be quite a twist.
How's that? Your cars
into
suck
China
anyway. Yeah, we're going to bring in the Chinese cars. Maybe this is what it'll take to get the whole world back in order. The tariffs are off. We're piling on Tesla. Chinese cars, free. Trump should buy everyone a BYD.
They say the BYD is a wonderful car.
They say it's a wonderful car. They say it's much better than a Tesla.
They're going to send one here as a gift to me.
They say it's much better than Tesla. Abolish NATO says,
better.
Yeah. Why did Trump supporters not think that Trump had anything to do with Epstein? Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Congratulations, guys, on 100K. Thank you, Ahmed. Appreciate that very much. Otacon says, anyone who runs is Hamas. Anyone who does honest journalism is well-trained Hamas. Ken Minji, Piers Morgan, Israel, do you condemn the fact that you've caused my breakdown? Thank you. EO Shush, when the moderators asked Mamdani which country would visit first, he should have said Qatar. I heard they're giving out free jets. A good one. Kit's Corner, starting to rewatch Anthony Bourdain's travel show to regain some trust in the world. Both the Iran and Palestine episodes seem to have been scrubbed from streaming sites,
really?
even clips on YouTube. Wow, interesting. Kit's Corner, curious question. If Western Canada does succeed to separate, would you consider relocating there, given healthcare would still be intact? That's interesting.
I mean, if I were going to be an expat, I don't think I'd pick Western Canada.
Yeah, I don't think so. But I think he means the rest of Canada, too. When the moderators asked Mamdani which country he would visit first, should have said Qatar. Oh, got that one. Sorry. Okay. RDNW says Russell's red hat conservative portrayal sounds a lot like Bill Cosby. I realize that save our democracy really means save our grip on power. Thank you for that. Got some more here. Nocturnal Human says Trump is immediately deporting those 59 Afrikaners. A good one, yes. They're right there. Get the hell out.
Right there. Won't someone think of the Afrikaners?
Yes.
How does this affect the Afrikaners?
How is Trump getting a pass on Gaza, says EO Shush? Not you guys, but the narrative was Biden was complicit, was a war criminal. Now the narrative is just Israel's responsible, even though Trump has given green light. I mean, I think he's been getting.
I don't know about that.
I don't know that he's been getting a pass. I think he, I think he has been well, yeah, certainly not from us, but yeah, I don't know that he's been getting a pass. I haven't seen much of that. Although, I mean, I do take your point. The focus now seems to be more on Israel than him. But I don't think he's gotten a pass. I think to the extent that he's referenced.
I think it's because a certain portion of the MAGA base has accepted that just going along with the Israel shit is part of the bargain, and those people were vocal about it when Biden was
Biden, right?
That might be it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Rich man bitch fights, says Stoop Sign. What bitch man fights rich? Otacon, I'm all for accelerationism. Let Elon cook. There you go. Musk is going to get deported to Mars. Yes. EO Shush says we're witnessing the greatest crash out of all time. Yeah, that is epic. That is
kind of
fucking
awesome.
Epic. That is awesome. That is awesome.
I'm sorry this broke like right when we're going into our weekend.
Yeah, man.
By Sunday, these guys could be fucking back to back with pistols marching 20
we're
paces.
lucky that broke while we were on the air, because that would have been a real shame to not have that until Sunday.
True.
That is amazing.
Count your blessings.
Count your blessings. That's right. We want to thank Elon Musk for giving us some material toward the end of the show.
Yeah, I think Due Dissidence is still on.
I think they're still live. Let me
put this tweet out now.
Hopefully they see it. Hopefully Keaton's ADHD kicks in and he checks Twitter while Russell is doing his segment, and he'll notice it.
He's always I've noticed his eye movements. We've had AI analyze it. He's usually scrolling during those segments, especially the videos and the monologues. So yeah,
yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
Put it out right when he's monologuing.
Hey, you can never get on me for doing that again. We caught it. All right, folks. Hey, thank you very much to everybody for helping us get to 100,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for watching this afternoon. You guys are the best chat on YouTube and on Rumble. Make sure you're following us both places, and we will see you on Sunday night at 7 p.m. And then we will be hosting the Jimmy Dore Show on Monday, June 9th. So make sure you are staying in touch with us. Appreciate you all very much for being here today. Marvin Vargas got a last-minute super chat in. Elon get Mo vagina liberal and babies because of revelation. Well, thank you, Marvin Vargas. Appreciate you guys all being here today. Thank you all very much for your support. We will see you back here Sunday night. Until then, be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.